We're recording. Please go ahead.
Thank you. Good evening. Seeing a presence of a quorum, I am calling the March 9th, 2026 special meeting public forum of the Town Council to order at 6:31 p.m. Please be advised that this meeting is being held in person and that the remote access option for members of the public is provided as a courtesy only. In the event of technology issues with the remote connection, the meeting will continue in person as scheduled as long as there is a quorum of the council present in the town room or through technological means. Chapter 2 of the Acts of 2025 extended through June 30th, 2027, the ability of public bodies to meet without a quorum of the council physically present at the meeting location, although a quorum is present in the town room. The meeting is being recorded and is accessible in real time via Zoom, by phone, and as a live broadcast on Amherst Media Channel 9 and at amherstmedia.org. At this time, I'm going to call upon each counselor by the name they have indicated that they would like to be addressed. This will indicate that we can hear you and you can hear us. Counselor Breivik.
Here.
Counselor Ken O'Martin has not arrived yet. We'll come back. Andy Churchill.
Here.
Anna Devlin Gauthier.
Present.
Lynn Griesemer.
Present.
Mandy Jo Haneke is present. Counselor Lord. Okay. We can barely hear you, Counselor Lord. So we did hear you, but next time maybe speak closer to the mic. Sam McLeod.
Present.
Pam Rooney.
I'm here.
Counselor Ryan.
Present.
Kathy Shane.
I'm here.
Jennifer Taub.
I'm here.
And Counselor Walker.
Here.
As Counselor Cano Martin has not showed up yet. Okay. And so let me just get this here. If counselors have technical issues, please let the council clerk know or call a point of personal privilege. During the public forum, we will hear this soon, but there is public comment only on the items subject to the public forum. When the public forum is adjourned, we will move to the regular meeting and general public comment will occur during that meeting. It can be confusing when we have these two meetings in an evening. So we're going to try something at this time. As I promised when I was elected president, we're going to let Vice President Walker preside over the public forum portion of this meeting as we try and get experience for all leadership. So I'm going to pass the gavel to Vice President Walker at this time for the public forum.
Okay, great. So we will start the public forum off with a presentation. The town manager has a short presentation available, and we will move to public comment on any of the financial orders thereafter. Thank you, Paul.
Thank you. Actually, it'll be Sean McGowan, our finance director, making the presentation.
Awesome.
Thank you. Is it possible just to put the listing of the orders up? I was just going to speak to each of them. I think there's memos in the packet that explain more behind each one, so I was just going to use that as the guide.
Yep, go ahead. I'll get those up.
Okay, so the numbering could be a little confusing based on, if you're looking at the packet, there were a couple conflicting order numbers, so I'll try to be really clear with the order or the lettering to each order. So there's 6 orders that we're holding the hearing on tonight. The first order is letter A. 2020 is FY26 12A, and that is to transfer the excess over 10% in our general stabilization fund to our capital stabilization fund. So there's a financial policy that looks at the percentage of our general stabilization fund relative to our operating budget, and when it exceeds 10%, we shift the excess to capital stabilization. So the excess at the end of FY25 was $335,144. So the proposal or the order is to transfer that amount from general stabilization to capital stabilization, which will give us a new total in capital stabilization of $12.9 million currently. And I should just keep running through all these orders, correct?
Yes, please.
Okay. All right. So the second order is letter B, 2026 12B. And that is to appropriate the amount of money that we received in FY25 in cannabis excise tax. One of our other financial policies is that we will appropriate that the following year to the Reparation Stabilization Fund, if the town is in good financial position. And per the town manager, the town is in a good financial condition. So the proposal is to transfer that money, which in FY25 totaled 56,440, to the Reparation Stabilization Fund, which will give a new balance in that fund of $663,861. Here's where it gets tricky. So the next one is letter C, and this 2026 12C, and this is for roads and sidewalks. This was the order that has changed. So the new order is to appropriate $2.7 million towards roads and sidewalks. That would be part of our capital improvement program moving forward. The next order is 12D, which is to appropriate from free cash for field maintenance of the new track and field. So with we've been having conversations with the regional schools around how to best maintain the field within the track and the new fields around the track. And we kind of mutually agreed that at least for this next year or two, to appropriate some additional funds to contract out for the care of those fields. And so the estimate for 2 years, or really to get us through the end of calendar year 27, is $150,000. This is one where we are also seeking approval of an intermunicipal agreement, correct? Yes. We're also seeking approval to enter into an intermunicipal agreement to outline how these funds will be spent. At this point, we're sort of leaning towards these funds would be given to the regional school district as well, to allow them to enter into a contract with a landscaper or someone who specializes in this. They best know the conditions of their fields and the schedule for their fields, and so would be the best one to manage that contract. And so therefore, we would enter into this special agreement to do that. The next one is 12E, and this is for opioid settlement funds. So each year we receive a disbursement from the state there's about 5 different opioid settlements with different distributors of opioids over the years. And the town will be receiving those until 2039. And so when they come in, they go into our free cash fund, and then we put them into a special revenue fund where they can be tracked, because they can only be used on opioid mitigation strategies that our public health department and others, I know our EMS team and some others or either have developed or are close to finalizing a plan for how those funds will be spent. They have done some community outreach to get feedback on that plan as well. So this would move the amount of opioid settlement money that we received in FY25 into that special revenue fund. And then the last order, which is 2612F, is to appropriate $1.6 million for the replacement of the middle school auditorium roof. And that was based on figures provided to us from the regional school district and through conversation with the finance committee. And so this order would also require an intermunicipal agreement to outline how those funds would be dispersed to the regional schools. Should it be approved, they would outline the mechanics for how invoices would get paid and how that portion of the roof replacement would be tracked and how we'd get those funds to the regional schools. So those are the 6 orders that are under consideration.
Thank you, Sean. Anyone wishing to comment or ask a question specific to these financial orders related to this public forum who is attending remotely, please raise your hand in the Zoom application. If you are present in the town room and have not signed up with the council clerk, please do so now. Residents are welcome to comment or ask a question specific to the financial orders related to this public forum. This is not a general public comment period. That period will take place in the regular town council meeting that will begin after this public forum adjourns. Are you all right?
Sorry.
Okay, just making sure.
A little technical assistance, but yeah.
Yes. It can be. Okay, thank you. And public forum comments or questions are not reflective of the opinions of the town council because this is a public forum. If questions are asked about the financial orders, there is potential for them to be answered. So let's
Counselor
see.
Cano Martin has joined.
Oh. Counselor Cano Martin, will you please let us know that you can hear and be heard?
Yes, I can. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, and just if you speak again, just speak up a little bit. It was just a little bit hard to hear you. Thank you. Okay, at this time, we don't have anyone on Zoom with a hand raised. Athena, do we have anyone in the town room? Okay. So I will allow everyone to have 3 minutes to speak during public comment. There will be a timer, so just please be mindful of that when you're giving comment. And Athena, if you don't mind calling the first name.
Vince O'Connor? Vince, come on up.
Thank you, Vince. Please state your name and make your public comment.
Vince O'Connor, 175 Summer Street, apartment 12. I think it would be helpful if in your presentations you listed, and I don't know what the number is. I've asked a couple of counselors and they didn't happen to know what the surplus was that that was revealed on when the books were all organized on by July 15th or so. And so that would be helpful in being able for both the public and I think people, interested parties, in being able to understand how it is that we are dispersing this money and so forth, because we've had surpluses for many years. And I think so that's one comment, just informational. The second thing is, I think that given the fact that the residents of the town and the town council was told for a number of years when surpluses in $5 to $7 million were generated, but we're told in the spring there was no money for schools and the school budgets were reduced, in my opinion, unnecessarily. I think that this would be an appropriate time for some of the surplus to be allocated to both the school districts to compensate them for the failure of all concerned to appropriate the money that should have gone to them had inaccurate comments about the availability of town funds not be made. Finally, my concern is that we take out of the about to be discussed operating budget, we supplement that with money from the capital improvement fund, and thereby may free up some money from this year for schools. I think that the roads and the department in general have been underfunded, and I really think that now is the time, despite the fact that we have these giant building projects on the table. The roads in this town are terrible. I drive 25 to 30,000 miles, mostly in this town. And I don't understand how the council can tolerate the condition of these roads. And the surplus fund should be used to increase the amount beyond that which is in the proposal tonight.
Thank you, Vince. Sean, did you want to speak to that comment?
Yeah, I was going to quickly respond. Athena, I don't know if I can do it if you want to share, give me sharing ability, or if you want to share the table.
ahead.
That's okay. All right, so hopefully you can see this on my screen. This is the table that was in the memo. And this is the updated table that has the order for the auditorium roof. So the certified free cash balance at the end of FY25 was 10.2 million. This shows the appropriation orders that are in front of you coming out of that. So 89,000 for opioid settlements, 56,000 for the reparation stabilization fund, $2.7 million for roads, and the 1.6 for the roof, and then the 150,000 for the fields at the high school. And then there are additional funds within free cash that are earmarked for youth empowerment, and that leaves us with our 5% sort of carry level that we keep our free cash at. So I think to the point from the gentleman making public comment that this is sort of the inflow and outflow of resources from free cash, so that the public has a better understanding of it.
Thank you, Sean. Okay, let's see. Is there anyone else who would like to make a public comment at this time? Athena, do we have anyone else on the list for the
No.
forum? Okay. Okay. And then Mandy Jo, I don't know if you want to adjourn. Yeah,
A point of order, we do need to keep the public forum open for about 5 more minutes.
okay. Thank you. So
I have 6:52 as our,
okay. Yeah, I think generally we are required to leave the public hearing open just as long as the presentation took. That is correct.
the charter requires that the public forum give at least half the meeting time to public comment. So we just leave the rest of the meeting for public comment until we've met that 50%.
Thank you, Athena. Okay. Okay, just like a couple of minutes.
We'll discuss it at agenda setting.
Yeah. Yeah. I did too. I was surprised. We didn't have any on Zoom. Oh. is- Okay. We do actually have another hand on Zoom of someone who would like to public comment. So Tyler, if you can unmute yourself and state your name and make your comment.
Yes, my name is Tyler DeShong. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay. I've never attended one of these before, so apologies if I run awry of how to do this, but I just kind of wanted to echo what the last gentleman commented on in terms of the capital investment for roads and pavement. I'm sure many people can attest that is a concern for a lot of people, and I'm just thinking about the little bit of research that I have been doing on um, expenditures in the last several years by the town of Amherst for those things. And so just trying to put into context of what this proposed investment, how that compares to previous years. Also thinking about inflation and just general cost increases year on year. So I personally am concerned that this investment is not enough to really be adequate for the dire need of repair for many of the streets in the town. So thank you.
Thank you, Tyler.
We are at 6:51.
Okay, great. So I am going to make a motion to adjourn, seeing that we don't have anyone else who would wish to make a public comment at this time. So I move to adjourn the public forum at 6:51 p.m. Do I have a second? Thank you, Lynn, and I will just do a roll call. Counselor Brevik,
Yes.
Counselor Colonel Martin,
Yes.
Anna Devlin Gauthier,
Yes.
Andy Churchill,
Yes.
Kathy Schoen,
Yes.
Counselor Ryan,
Aye.
Jennifer Taub,
Yes.
Lynn Griesmer,
Yes.
Mandy Jo Haneke, Pam Rooney,
Yes.
Sam McLeod,
Aye.
and Counselor Walker is an aye.
Thank you, Counselor Walker. We are going to move on to the regular town council meeting. Let me this. So I am calling the regular town council meeting for March 9th, 2026 to order at 6:52 p.m. I'm not going to go through all the other preliminary stuff because we just did all of that, although this still is being recorded and is accessible by Zoom and everything. And so we will then move on to our agenda. The announcements were on the agenda itself. There are no hearings, which means we are going to move on to general public comment at this time. Anyone wishing to make general public comment who is attending remotely, please raise your hand in the Zoom application. If you are present in the town room and have not signed up with the council clerk, please do so now. Residents are welcome to make public comments on matters within the jurisdiction of the town council. The council will not engage in a dialogue or comment on a matter raised during general public comment. Public comments are not reflective of the opinions of the town council. The First Amendment broadly protects individuals' rights to address the government, to speak, and to express themselves, including their right to say hateful and offensive things. I am generally unable to shut those commenters down under the First Amendment to the U.S. Constitution, unless their level of speech falls within an exception articulated by the courts, such as fighting words, true threats to a particular individual, harassment of a particular individual, or incitement of imminent lawless activity. If a question exists as to whether a particular speaker is engaging in unprotected speech, I must defer to the principle of freedom of speech. At this time, there are no hands raised on Zoom of people who wish to make public comment. Athena says there are 3 people in the town room who have signed up for public comment. Therefore, each commenter will have 3 minutes to make their public comment. Who is our first commenter, Athena?
Andrew Brace.
Andrew, please come on up, state your name, where you live, and make your public comment.
All right. Hey, my name is Andrew Brace. I'm the president of the DPW Association. I also live in town, but I'm here today as the president of the DPW Association. We're here tonight because we would like to provide some updates to the town council and to the public. Last week on Tuesday, March 3rd, we met with the town manager for the first time during this negotiation process. We clearly communicated with the town manager what we were expecting in order to settle the contract. We conveyed that what we were asking for is a step in the right direction, but it doesn't go far enough in addressing many long-standing historical inadequacies that will still need to be addressed in the future. At a minimum, what we are asking will help prevent these inadequacies from getting worse and start moving us toward where we need to be to retain essential personnel and be competitive in the marketplace. Our hope is that the town takes a respectful and proactive approach in addressing this contract and in future negotiations. We are meeting with the town manager again this week on Wednesday, March 11th, and hope that we can resolve this contract for the association and, more importantly, for the benefit and safety of the community we serve. Thank you.
Thank you for coming tonight, Andrew, and thank you for your comments.
Michael Brown.
Michael, please come on up. state your name, where you live, and make your comment.
Sorry. I'm Michael Brown. I live on Station Road.
Can you make sure you speak closer to the mic? Thanks.
I am Michael Brown. How's that? I live on Station Road. I've lived here since 1972. Andrew's comments last week about fairness, comparing us to other towns, I won't repeat any of that. It's all available on our phones in about 3 seconds. What resonated with me and why I'm here again is that this is not who we are. We don't exploit people that work in this town. And it feels like we're exploiting them. That doesn't sit well with me as a resident. It shouldn't sit well with you as the people that are elected to represent us. And frankly, I hope it doesn't sit well with you. These people, sorry, these men and women work in this town. They come at all hours to protect us, to make our town safe, to keep the town looking beautiful the way we want it. And we are like 5th to last in the state in how we compensate them. I've never worked in the public sector. I don't know how the public sector works. I don't know how to negotiate these contracts. But I've been in the private sector my whole life. I've negotiated a lot. Salaries, jobs, etc. And the way that's done is you look left and right. Not because you want to be the lowest, but because you want to retain the best. And you got to figure out how to do that. And part of that is how you compensate people and how you treat them. You heard last week, we're not retaining people. We're training them and sending them off to other towns. How is that okay? But not just, I'm not talking just fiscally. How is that okay with us as people? I hope we do better. I really do. I hope next week or whenever this, reconvenes on this topic, and I'm sitting here in the audience, that I'm going to be proud of being an Amherst resident and proud of all of you. Thanks.
Thank you, Michael, for coming tonight.
Vince O'Connor?
Vince, come on up, state your name, where you live, and make your comment.
Yeah. Vincent O'Connor, 175 Summer Street, apartment 12. So, and I have a written statement, but I'm going to summarize it and make some observations. I listened to 3 council members say they have no knowledge of a town government plan to deal with an ice surge in Amherst. So I wrote one up, one that takes account of the Minnesota experiences and the Hampshire Franklin District Attorney's publicly stated willingness to prosecute ICE wrongdoing. It may not be the best plan or even a good one, but it is a plan, which is better than no plan, which is what those who attended the District 1 council meeting, DOMA, yesterday had questions. What is the plan? What is going to happen when I call 911 because a neighbor's U.S. citizen child is being taken by armed, masked individuals, or a house next door is having its door broken in by people? So I think we need to have some reasonable questions of this nature about a $5 billion department who has yet to inform the citizens of what they're going to do if some of these things happen. My plan is simple: get as many people off the streets as possible. Find temporary homes for people who might be on ICE's hit list, generated by getting all the public information. Have classes conducted by Zoom for everybody, not just for Black, Latino, and kids whose English is not their first language. And utilize mutual aid and in a clear field in which wrongdoing can be effectively stopped. If the council had a public safety committee rather than a let's make deals committee, I would have brought this before such a committee, hopefully one that had a real interactive process rather than you can talk for 3 minutes and then be quiet and listen for 2 hours. There is going to be public liability for the town if people call 911 and there is no plan in place and no plan has been developed and the public has not been informed about what is going to happen. If they're going to be on their own against a group of armed, masked individuals breaking down their doors, are we going to have an appropriate police response? And, you know, it can't be just up to the manager to do that. That's your job. And
Please
I hope
conclude
that
your
every
comments.
place you go, people will ask you, what is the plan? Because no plan is a bad plan.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Vince, for coming tonight. We have one hand raised on Zoom, so Pat O, please unmute yourself, state your name and where you live, and make your comment.
Good evening. Can
Good
people
evening.
hear me?
Yes, we can.
Oh, okay. Pat Onanibako, 40-year resident. The president for Black Business Association of Amherst area. I didn't plan to speak tonight, but just want to remind you guys that Dr. Amilcar Shabazz submitted a public comment last night, and I just want to stress that it's been multiple years now that BBAA did not receive APA funds. Some of the money were put back to cash reserve. We have millions of dollars extra money. And during this budget season, I am asking the town council to do the right thing and put aside some money for BBAA members. This particular body gave $300,000 to Drake nightclub. And my group did not get anything except for 2 members. Do the right thing. If you pride yourself as a welcoming community, you have to do whatever you do through equity lens. Do the right thing and discuss and put aside money for my group. Thank you.
Thank you for coming tonight, Pat. That concludes public comment at this time, which means we will move on to the consent agenda. Thank you for coming. The following items were selected because they were considered to be routine and it was reasonable to expect they would pass with no controversy. To remove an item from the consent agenda for discussion later in the meeting, ask that it be removed when the president lists the consent agenda items. The request to remove an item from the consent agenda does not require a second. So the motion would be, and we'll make it formally after I read the items on the list, is to move the following items in the printed motions thereunder and approve those items as a single unit. 6A, Adoption of Child Abuse Awareness and Prevention Month Proclamation. 8A3, Approval of Council Order FY 2612A, an order appropriating from the General Stabilization Fund to the Capital Stabilization Fund. 8A4, Approval of Council Order FY 2612B, an order appropriating from free cash to the Reparations Stabilization Fund. 8A5, Approval of Council Order FY 2612D, an order appropriating from free cash for a portion of the Town of Amherst Capital Program. 8A6, Approval of Council Order FY 2612E, an order appropriating from free cash to the Opioid Settlement Special Revenue Fund. Item 8C, Adoption of the Bylaw Review Committee charge and designation of special municipal employee status. Item 8E, Referral of the financial order for Aaron property purchase for water protection. 9A1, approval of town manager appointments to the Transportation and Parking Commission. And 11A and B, approval of minutes for February 23rd, 2026's regular meeting and March 2nd, 2026's special meeting. I see no hands at this time for people wanting to remove anything from consent, so I will make that motion to move those items as read. Is there a second?
Second.
Counselor Kendall Martin, was that going to be a second?
No, I just wanted to ask if there would be a moment to speak to this motion before we vote on it.
Consent motions can be spoken to and debated before we vote. So yes, if you. So Lynn seconded it. So Counselor Kendall Martin, did you have something you wanted to say?
Yeah, I did just want to speak to this motion, because I have noticed that, in accordance what was commented by Amilcar Shabazz that we received as a public comment, and as well as Ms. Pat, who just spoke, that there has not been any money included for Black businesses. And I do think there was inequity in the process of how that was handled, back when the ARPA funds were first given to the town. So I just wanted to express that I am interested in finding a way that we can allocate some funding for growing our Black businesses in Amherst. I'm not sure what that mechanism is yet, but I just wanted to let both Ms. Pat and Amilcar Shabazz know that you're heard. And I think that we need to find a way to do this. I think this is really valuable and it's really important. So it's not in the motion. I wish that it was.
Thank you. Remember, we are voting on our consent motion that includes about 8 items. So it should be, any debate should be spoken and reference the consent items. Seeing no other hands, we will move to a vote. We start with Counselor Kendall Martin.
Yes.
Andy Churchill.
Yes.
Anna Devlin Gauthier.
Aye.
Lynn Griesemer.
Aye.
Mandy Jo Haneke is an aye. Counselor Lord.
Aye.
Sam McLeod.
Aye.
Pam Rooney.
Yes.
Counselor Ryan.
Aye.
Kathy Shane.
Yes.
Jennifer Taub.
Yes.
Counselor Walker.
Yes.
And Counselor Breivik.
Yes.
That is unanimous for consent. Lynn, would you like to read the now therefore clause of the proclamation?
Sure. Now therefore, we, the Amherst Town Council, do hereby proclaim the month of April 2026 to be Child Abuse Awareness and Prevention Month, and further recognize this proclamation by raising the child abuse prevention flag from April 3rd to April 30th, 2026 to help cultivate awareness for all residents of Amherst, with a flag raising ceremony to be held on April 3rd, 2026 at 9:00 a.m. in front of Amherst Town Hall.
Thank you. We are moving right along. We have no, so that takes care of resolutions and proclamations. We have no presentations and discussions tonight. We move to action items under the financial orders. 3, 4, 5, and 6 were just approved under consent. We will start with number 1 and number 2. They were also unanimous votes of the Finance Committee. If Kathy would like to speak to them, we're going to start with number 1, which is, item 8A1, which is Council Order FY 2612F, an order appropriating from free cash for a portion of the Town of Amherst capital program replacement of the middle school auditorium roof. Kathy, would you like to give the Finance Committee report on that?
Yes, the Finance Committee recommended unanimously that we do this as worded, which it's a gift to the region without any strings attached. And we have a description. There was a discussion of the intermunicipal agreement that the town would have with the region that should the costs come in under the 1.6 million, the money would, that difference would be returned to Amherst. And we were assured by the finance director and the town management that would be the case. We had a long discussion about this, including we did get information about the current reserves and excess and deficiency amounts, many of which the region plans to use for the coming year operating budget. And we viewed this as urgent and timely because the rest of the roof is going out to bid, and we wanted to make sure that this part of the roof was done at the same time as the rest of the roof. As I think everyone on the council knows, we got a fair amount of documentation about the condition of the roof. It is actively leaking into the wall and into the ceiling and onto the stage. And one thing that I'm not sure I captured in the Finance Committee report that we sent to the council is we had a discussion of what appeared to us to be quite irrational on the part of MSBA, that they're willing to fund almost all of the roof, but one part because of the age of the roof, that it makes more sense to do it all and to do it in context. And there was a remark that in Holyoke, they did all the windows but one section of the window in a similar way. And so there's a need, I think, to talk to MSBA that it basically doesn't make any sense to make people come back or not do it all at once, that it doesn't make financial sense and it doesn't make the accelerator repair. So there was a bit of discussion on how long it would take to get back into the cycle. We don't have a good estimate of how much costs have escalated or will escalate if we had to wait 3 or 4 more years. We do know it's actively leaking and in the middle of the school. And we do know that the original amount appropriated from the roof didn't come close to covering the cost today, although COVID affected the escalation in costs. So we had quite a bit of discussion on a gift or not gift, and came down on the same side as where the council had originally done, is not to attach strings. The other thing, there was a fair amount, we use the building, the town of Amherst. And our understanding is that we're not charged rent to use the building. So it is a resource. The pool is a resource, the auditorium is a resource. And if it was an active working order, the region could hope to get rent when other groups use it for theater and other performances. So this is an asset that is good for all of us. So basically that was the discussion. And we did talk about the roads and sidewalks on the other side of it, because what this is doing is reducing roads and sidewalks from the original proposed 4.2 down to 2.7 million. And I want to note, just to the person who made a comment at the earlier forum, this is not the only money that the town is putting into it. We have a substantial amount of money coming from the state. We've budgeted for this fiscal year another $750,000 of the town's capital program in this current fiscal year. So we are reducing the amount, but this was going to be extra amount. And the estimate on what does that do to the index is our roads are in such a state of disrepair that this is at the margin rather than gutting it. So that was the discussion, and the context was we need to think about both of them. And I think I'll stop there, but if any Finance Committee member would like to add to my comments, because we had a good hour-long discussion on this.
Thank you. We need to make a motion first, so I forgot to do that before I recognized you. So the motion is, having held a public forum on March 9th, 2026, with a recommendation by the Finance Committee on March 3rd, 2026, to adopt appropriation and transfer order FY26-12F, an order appropriating from free cash for a portion of the Town of Amherst capital program replacement of middle school auditorium roof, as shown on page 11 of the motion sheet. Is there a second?
Second, Devlin Gothier.
Thank you. I have my hand raised, but I have a different motion to make, so I will let the 3 counselors that have raised their hands speak before I make that motion. So Counselor Ryan.
So in your, by the way, I always enjoy reading the Finance Committee's reports, and they're quite detailed and helpful. And in reading that report and also reading the manager's memo, it became pretty clear to me, I think, that, and to others, that this did not really follow the usual process, the regular process, this process of getting money for the roof. And that in fiscal year 25, for some reason, it quote unquote fell through the cracks. So I'm wondering if you got a sense from the regional school committee officials and the regional school committee that they will be a little bit more attentive to their responsibilities in terms of making requests in a timely manner, so we're not constantly getting this at the last minute. I think you're right. I agree with the decision that the committee made that this is something we have to do, but I'd feel a lot better about it if it were done according to the normal process and we had some sort of advance notice. This is not a surprise. This has been known for some time. So it's not a criticism of what you decided or of the report, but my impression is that there was less than good attention paid. Maybe there were reasons for that, but we end up once again offering a substantial gift to the regional school committee. And I would really wish that in the future they would be more, shall we say, follow the regular processes and be more attentive to their capital needs.
Thank you. Kathy?
We unfortunately, we weren't able to have the finance director for the schools with us. So I don't have a direct response on that, but I have had more informal back and forth from some of the school committee members. And there's a general agreement, there needs to be a focus on planning and capital. You know, that tends to be at the end of a long discussion about the operating budget, but there needs to be a focus on short and long term with a lot of attention to what level of urgency. So I think there was a recognition that not just this slip, but there's some big ticket items coming up. The high school roof is on the list and everyone looks at the number and says, oh dear, but that there needs to be more of a active approach. And so this was raised in our discussion, but we weren't having a discussion directly with the region. It's just what I want to say, that, you know, this was just among our finance committee. And they're in the middle of a budget cycle, so taking time out right now, but we can, I don't know how many people watched the finance committee, but we're putting together a set of questions that are in advance of the budget, but there are more general, and we can ask that question specifically under our charter authority, investigative about planning and getting better information. The other towns also felt this way too, George. You know, like last minute changes didn't sit well with anyone.
Thank you. Anna?
This is just a follow-up from Kathy's Finance Committee report. Something that I've been working on, and if anyone would like to help me on it, you're welcome, is a letter to bring to the council to send to the MSBA just to encourage them to add in a bit of flexibility for context into the accelerated repair program. They're very rigid in terms of timing, and that was part of what set this challenge in front of us initially, is because this part of the roof was like 1 year off or 2 years off, if I'm remembering correctly, from the deadline, from the requirement for the program that's funding the rest of the roof. So I know that other communities have been hit by this as well, where 99% of their project was covered, but a little bit wasn't. And then it was a painful funding process for them. So I'm working on a draft of that now and hope to have it to the council soon. But just to let folks know that we're not letting it just lie, that this program is causing us some challenges because they're not looking at the full picture.
Thank you. Andy?
Yeah, I was trying to look through the Finance Committee report, but I guess the question I have is, we're gifting 1.6 million, and if it comes in under that, we'll get some money back. If it comes in over that, is there a provision for what happens?
I think if it comes in over that, that's the only amount of money that we have on the table. So we didn't get a clear answer. I don't know, but Paul or Sean, I mean, my impression, we've got the same thing for the rest of the roof. You know, if it comes in over the amount of available, there's an amount available. So I do not know what happens, whether, I literally don't know what happens, you know, if it comes in $50,000 over, you know, so we didn't get an answer on that. And I don't, whether, Paul, whether Sean is still available on, so far. Yeah.
Paul, then Sean.
So to that question, if Sean, do you want to address that question? I have a different.
Sure. Yeah. So like any project, if it comes in over, there would have to be a conversation at the regional school committee level with their staff about how much it came in over, what funding sources are available. And then if their intention was to request more money from the town, they would have to request more money from the town. But I don't think, nothing in this appropriation order, what has been discussed so far, provides any additional funding beyond the 1.6.
Paul?
Thank you. So I need to advocate for the roads in the town. I recognize what the Finance Committee has voted. I recognize the need for the middle school roof. No one from the school committee or school district attended the Finance Committee meeting to discuss the needs at the school district. But I can attest to you, and you're going to hear this over the next months, over the condition of our roads. Failing to invest in our roads now with these funds is going to put us farther behind the condition of our roads, and we need to put that money into our roads. And so I would encourage you to stick with the original request from the town manager, to go with the higher amount for the roads and put this into the normal process, or at least look for a repair funding where all 4 towns can contribute.
Thank you. Sam, you took your hand down, or?
Thank you, Mandy. In the Finance Committee, we talked about this thoroughly, and it was I am very much an advocate for putting funds into the roads. But given the urgency and the timing that this is going out to bid, I felt it was a no-win situation. We had 2 things that needed to get done, and it was disappointing that this request came in short order before the Finance Committee, but it is the school, lots of kids there, and it's leaking. I supported it, but it doesn't detract from what I hope we will proceed with for the roads. I'm hearing this from many constituents regularly every week, and I understand the town manager's concerns. He put together a good investment in this, and then we kind of had a surprise, but I felt it was kind of a no-win scenario. The car is broken and the kid's got to go to the dentist with an abscess tooth. You got to do both. And I look at the roof as an abscess tooth that needs to be repaired. Thank you.
Thank you. Counselor Brevik.
Yeah, I just want to add similar sentiment, I suppose, but that I am also a big advocate for the roads. It's very clear, especially right in this current moment, how bad the roads are. I just don't think it makes sense to take money from another emergency situation and put it to this emergency situation with the roads. I think there are, excuse me, other ways we could think about how to fund our roads that are not letting another emergency or crisis situation escalate like we have with the middle school roof. So, I mean, to me, it really feels like a no-brainer. And again, I think that we do as a council need to think about what is the root of this issue with the roads? What do we need to do in the future, and how do we solve this going forward? It's not an easy thing, but I just don't think this was the place to pull money.
Thank you. Jennifer.
I guess I'm really echoing what Councilor Brevik just said. My concern about putting some money, I mean, we have to do, roads are urgent, and we have to do roads, and we have to do the middle school roof. I just don't see where the middle school roof is an option. And if we put money into repairing it, it reminds me of what we did the DPW a couple of years ago. I think they were given, I'm not quite sure how the money was spent. I don't know that the council circled back on that, but they were given $100,000 to do some immediate repairs. But the building, the employees continue to work in unsafe and unhealthy conditions, although we did appropriate some money for, the most urgent repairs. And I wouldn't want to see us going down that road with the middle school roof, where we'll make some, we'll do some patching as we can, but it's still going to be, really an unhealthy environment for students and others who attend events in the middle school auditorium to be there. So I just don't see how we have a choice but to seize the moment when the whole roof is being replaced, and for economies of scale to see that the middle school roof is replaced and not just patched.
So I prefaced that I was going to let people speak before I make a motion, and I'm going to make a motion to postpone this vote to March 23rd, 2026. I hope there will be a second so I can explain why I would like to postpone it.
Second.
Thank you, Lynn. On March 20th, the bids for this project will be open. The bids for the MSBA project will be open, which includes an alt ad for the middle school roof. The regional school district has indicated that they wish to sign a contract by April 1. We have a meeting on March 23rd. If we wait until March 23rd to vote on this financial order, we will be able to vote the exact amount. We will know what the exact amount is. Further, if the bid of the low contractor for the MSBA project comes in under 1.6 million, waiting would allow us to add any difference between the bid amount and the 1.6 million that is currently in this financial order to the road paving financial order immediately, without having to wait for another financial order to be proposed and then needing to hold another public forum. And if the bid for the auditorium roof is higher than 1.6 million for the low contract bid on the MSBA project, then we would be able to actually discuss the consequences of that bid and our votes, including whether we vote it at all or revert to the manager's original road paving financial order. We might even have information then from the schools regarding that. In other words, waiting doesn't harm this project, but it does give us the additional information to make a more informed decision and more efficient handling of the road paving financial order that is on to be considered after this financial order. So I would ask that the council consider postponing this until March 23rd and after the bids are opened. So there'll be discussion now on the motion to postpone. Kathy.
I'm more than a little surprised, so I have to think about it. When we talked about this in January and we were told not to worry that we could get this voted out by March 9th, which would be more than enough time before the bids were open. So are you proposing that we postpone 12F and 12C, both of them?
If the postponement for 12F passes, I would make a similar motion on 12C.
So I think what you just said, I just need to hear the timeline again, that you're hedging the bet on what the price tag will be by waiting until the bids come in. And we don't need to have confirmed that we have the money available. I thought we had to have the money available by a vote. That was what I understood when we had this discussion in January, that we needed to have a positive vote that this money was on the table to honor the fact that we intended on doing it if the bids came in. And I think it sends a signal to the contractors who are bidding that the money is there. So I just don't understand why we wouldn't want to have it here. And revising, if it came in at 1.3, revising financial orders is not difficult. We've done that in the past where we've just said we don't need that amount of money. So it's not, the council has to do something and the finance department has to do something, but it's not a forever. And in terms of the larger project, it has a substantial contingency built into it, and they won't close that whole project out till the end after all the construction is done. So I'm not sure we'll know what the total amount actually spent on the project is. We will know what the bids are. So I'm just not understanding the notion of postponing and not saying the money is on the table.
Councilor Ryan.
Well, I guess I'd like an answer to that. If you can give it, my initial thought is if it's not going to harm the bid process, and we'll have more information when we finally vote, those are two strong reasons for waiting. But I'm also now hearing the thought that there seems to be some importance that we sort of make a gesture now, or we say the money's on the table now, right now, and waiting until the next meeting would have some kind of potential bad impact on the bidding process. Is that a real concern? Because if it is a concern, then I assume we should go ahead. And maybe we can't tell, but If it's just a matter of waiting another 2 weeks where we have more information to make a better decision, then I'm all for it. But if we do wait and that could harm the bidding process, then that doesn't seem to make a lot of sense. So can you help me with that, or am I misunderstanding this?
So the best I can do is the school district indicated they wanted to sign a contract by April 1 and that all financing that they cannot sign a contract until all financing is secured. They don't have to have all the financing secured when the bids are opened. That's my understanding, which means waiting till March 23rd would not harm the ability to sign a contract because they only wanted to sign by April 1. That's my understanding. We don't obviously have the school district available, and they did not come to finance to answer any questions about any of that either. Pam.
I'm sympathetic to both of these sides of the question. I wonder if Sean could give us a little bit of insight from his perspective from the previous school, and the town financing, if having money in hand is in fact something that needs to happen sooner rather than at the last minute.
Sean?
I'd love to. So I can't speak for the regional schools, so I don't want to, I'm not part of the procurement that they did. I don't know all the decisions they made, their timelines exactly. So I just want to be clear. My understanding is that the bid is out and that they need the funding approved before they can sign a contract. So they're going to get bids, they're going to review what those amounts are, and then they can't sign something without an appropriation, which for this piece of the bid, my understanding is they did it as an alternate, meaning a separate from everything else they bid out. They would need the funding approved by the council first. So delaying it, I think, is everything that you all said. It might, if the funding's not in place, maybe there's some general contractors that would not bid because there's no funding in place. I don't know how general contractors interpret that information. But to the other point, I think as long as the funding is there before they need to sign the contract, then they would have the option to sign for that after they open up bids. So again, that's my perspective, but I just want to be clear again, I don't know their exact timeline or how they're doing it.
Thank you. Pam, for a follow-up.
Thanks. I wonder if it would give the school committee some sense of security, though, knowing that the council had voted it and that it was in fact tangible.
Councilor Brevik.
Sorry, Sean put his hand back up. Did you want to?
Yeah, can I just say one more
Sure.
follow-up?
Sean.
I think the point Councilor Shane mentioned earlier is correct, that I don't know, just once we open up bids, or once they open up bids, I don't know that we will know the exact amount at that time. So the money that we will give them will cover the construction contract, which will be the biggest portion of it. But there will also be a portion for design work associated with it. There could be change orders or things that are unanticipated that pop up during the replacement of the roof. So I don't know if we will know the exact amount. When we were thinking about what an intermunicipal agreement would be, we were thinking about how to create some allowances for that. Basically, knowing that we won't know final project costs until, as Councilor Shane mentioned, months after the project is done. So I think that is a point to consider, that we won't have an exact, we'll know the exact construction number, but again, if there's any change orders or unanticipated conditions, that number could change.
Thank you. Councilor Brevik.
Yeah, while I understand the desire to do this and having it be nice and clean, I think that is appealing. If it's just a matter of waiting a little longer and we can have it be a nice, clean process. But I think that the motion is based on too much guesswork at this point in the game for us to make that kind of a decision, that if it could then in the end jeopardize this really important project or in some way derail it, or, as Sean said, maybe it means that there's a great contractor that won't go for this in this case. I just think there's too many questions, there's too many unknowns. This was really well thought out, and I think Kathy made a really strong case. And our report made a strong case for going forward with this. And if it is not that out of the ordinary to make changes after the fact, And maybe Kathy, you could speak just a little bit quickly to what that would look like if it comes up under. If that's not that big of a deal to navigate that, if that's something that we have navigated before, I don't think that's enough of a, I don't think this is enough of a reason to potentially derail the work.
Thank you. Sam?
Thank you, Mandy. I'm not sure if I heard you correctly when you were explaining the rationale for your motion. I understood what you indicated about trying to get the correct amount if it came in under. I thought I heard you reference something if the larger project came in lower than had been anticipated. I may have not heard that correctly. So my question is there another reason other than trying to get the correct amount if it's lower for your motion? I asked this because in the way the Finance Committee made the recommendation and the way it's written is if the amount comes in at less than the award, it's going to be returned to the town anyway. So I'm wondering, is there a separate reason other than that, getting that right amount or making the motion for less? Because I think it's apt to be equivalent either way, unless I missed something, and I might have. Thank you.
I'll try to explain. So we had an original 12C order for roads and sidewalks that was 4.3 million, I think. That if we vote tonight on a middle school roof at 1.6 and then a roads and sidewalk at 2.7, we cannot increase that 2.7 if the middle school roof comes in, say, at 1 million and 400,000 is freed up. We can't move that there, but if we waited 2 weeks and we knew we only needed to vote a middle school roof at, say, 1 million, I'm just at this point making numbers up, right? For example purposes, we could potentially vote the road and sidewalk at 3.1 million instead of 2.7 million because the original financial order was at 4.3 million, which would allow us to put more money into roads and sidewalks immediately instead of having to wait to see what sort of that max would be on the roof repair. I think what you were referencing also was that Kathy Shane was saying something about the MSBA portion of the project coming in under, but I don't know, she would have to speak to that. I don't know what the rules are given the votes on the borrowing as to whether any of that, if the non-middle school, the non-auditorium roof part comes in under the original estimated amount, whether the school committee could still borrow the full amount and include the roof, the auditorium roof within that borrowing. I don't know that answer. And I think Kathy Shane, I don't know whether you know that answer or what you've been speaking to about that.
I can speak to it just from the elementary school building experience. Our bids did come in below our estimate, but we've held it in contingency, and MSBA agreed to that because until it closes down, we don't know what the full cost is. So the authorization will probably still stand until it's all closed out. And at that point, MSBA gets 60% of it, and the other 40-ish% of it, or 64% of it, and the other 36% of it gets divvied up based on our shares, but we won't know that until the summer. And I just, on the notion that we can't do certain kinds of things, we can. I mean, we actually have JCPC process going on. If suddenly there was more money, we could put money into capital if we needed to for roads. So my understanding is these bids go out in the summertime. And so we already have, we get Chapter 90. So I just don't think ever, and Sean chose his words extremely carefully when he was asking, is there any risk to waiting? The answer is, I think there is some risk. And if we are ready to vote on this, I don't see a reason to postpone it. And contractors do look at what we have said we think the project will cost. That's what sets up the competitive bidding. In the bidding, we put, budgeted up to. So I think it's important to have the money be voted on and voted on tonight. And I won't say more, but I don't think inserting risk into it is worth it. Because I think we could, if if it came in a lot lower, which I don't think it will, if it comes in a lot lower, we do have the ability to move the money around because it creates excess cash. It puts it back into free cash.
Andy?
I want to get the roof done. But I'm just trying to figure out if the bids come in and the roof part is $2 million, I don't know what happens. Would waiting 2 weeks address that at all, or not really? Because we still won't know what the change orders are and the auxiliary costs. But it seems like it would give us a sense of scale, whether in the ballpark or not. I just don't know whether saying the money is available would put a dampening effect on competitive bidding, or if the money is not yet available, if that would restrain the cost that people would be bidding. I don't know how to game that out. So just how complicated. My one worry is that the bid comes in higher and we don't know what we would do then. So if we vote tonight 1.6 and it comes in higher, then we would have to have a conversation with the schools about what their reserves are and think about whether we want to up our gift, or is that what the situation we would be in, and would that be changed at all by this motion?
I think Sean is the best person to potentially answer some of those questions.
Yeah, again, at the risk of being proven very wrong in a couple weeks, my experience and what I've heard about this number is that these figures include a lot of contingency. And so in Holyoke, we did a bunch of roof projects. They came in quite a bit under budget when we actually received bids on those projects. And my understanding of this 1.6 is the same, that it includes quite a bit of contingency. So is there always the potential that it could come in higher? Yes. But I would say I feel like it's less likely that it'll come in higher than it will come in lower. And the other piece to remember about the risk of delay and general contractors looking at this, keep in mind, this is an add-on to a much bigger project, right? So general contractors are lining up for the main project, which is to replace the other sections of the roof, which is a $5 to $10 million project, and that this is being attached to that. So if this was a standalone project, I think there would be much greater risk of general contractors being concerned about whether the funds were appropriated. But because this is really just a piece of it, a relatively small piece of it, I think that risk is not as great.
Thank you. Lynn?
Thank you. I just want to clarify, you cannot talk about the MSBA project and this project in a way that any of the money left over from the MSBA project can be used for this project. That was all voted in for a specific project, not this, and would even have to go back to the respective town meetings. So it's not a bundle of cash if they save something. Having said that, I want to just say that I think Mandi Jo's trying very hard to, I don't want to put words in her mouth, but to make sure that we give as much to our roads as possible. And I find it an interesting idea. I haven't figured out which way I would vote, but thank you for making the option there. Thank you.
Thank you. Jennifer?
Yeah, I just want to be clear again.
Speak closer,
I'm
please.
sorry, if it comes in lower and we have more money that we can give to roads, why can't we just give it to roads?
If we vote tonight, we'll have already voted them, so we'll need another financial order, and who knows whether or if Paul would do that and when. So ask Paul.
Okay. I don't see why we wouldn't do that. I mean, it seems like we're creating a bureaucracy.
We can't on our
Right.
own.
Okay, well, I would have confidence in the town manager. Thank you.
Anna?
At this point, I'm not clear that the pros of delaying it outweigh the possible cons. It's if possibly and hopefully that bid comes in lower, it might slow additional funds going to roads. But if this has a chance to show bidders that funding is secured and support the competitive bidding process even more, that outweighs, for me, that outweighs an immediate higher financial order. Or no, sorry, a also delayed financial order for roads, right? So like you said, we can amend or add additional upon request of the town manager financial orders. And I would rather do and request from the town manager an additional or amended financial order for roads, unless somehow we're planning to spend all of this in the next 2 weeks. If we approved that money, which I don't think we are. So I still think we can give as much to our roads as possible, and vote this tonight.
Sean,
Sorry, hand left up from before.
oh, okay. Andy, your hand is still up. Sam?
Thank you, Mandy. In hearing the discussion, a thought entered my mind. I don't think it's something we can do, but we indicated in the motion that if it comes in lower, that the money would be returned to the town of Amherst. Could we say returned and allocated or intended to be allocated for roads? Or is that just too many apples and oranges? In other words, if we took the motion as it's existing and said if it came in less, that we would in fact allocate that differential to roads, which if possible would accomplish your objective, I believe.
Sean,
So generally, we don't do contingent orders. I don't think that would be a legal order because it would sort of be like an either or type of situation. So if the council really wanted to look into that, we could look into it, but I don't think that's something we would propose. We would just bring the order, if the town manager wanted to, we would just resubmit the order.
Kathy,
I'd like to call the question and bring this to a vote.
is there a second?
Second.
Calling the question requires 2/3 to vote in favor. The call the question is to end debate on the motion to postpone. So you will be voting on whether you want to stop debate. That is not debatable, so we move right to a vote. Andy Churchill.
Aye.
Anna Devlin Gauthier.
Aye.
Lynn Griesemer.
Aye.
Mandy Jo Haneke is an aye. Counselor Lord.
Aye.
Sam McLeod.
Aye.
Pam Rooney.
Yes.
Counselor Ryan.
Aye.
Kathy Shane.
Yes.
Jennifer Taub.
Yes.
Alicia Walker. Counselor Walker.
Yes.
Counselor Brevik.
Yes.
Counselor Cano Martin.
Yes.
Calling the question was unanimous. We immediately move to no, Counselor Brevik, you voted aye, correct?
Correct.
Yeah, it was unanimous. We move directly to the motion to vote on the motion to postpone. An aye would postpone the vote on the main motion. A nay or no would not postpone a vote on the motion. A yes on the motion to postpone moves the vote on the financial order to March 23rd. A no does not move it to March 23rd. We start with Anna Devlin Gauthier.
No.
Lynn Griesemer.
No.
Mandy Jo Haneke is an aye. Counselor Lord.
Nay.
Sam McLeod.
No.
Pam Rooney.
No.
Counselor Ryan.
Nay.
Kathy Shane.
No.
Jennifer Taub.
No.
Counselor Walker.
No.
Counselor Brevik.
No.
Counselor Cano Martin.
No.
Andy Churchill.
No.
That is 1 in favor, 12 opposed. The motion to postpone fails. Any further discussion on the financial order 12F? Seeing no further discussion, we will move to a vote on the motion to adopt appropriation and transfer order FY26 12F, free cash for a portion of the Town of Amherst Capital Program replacement of the middle school auditorium roof.
Shane seconds.
Though it was already made. We just have to vote it. We start with Lynn Griesemer.
I'm tempted to vote no so that I have an option to bring it back 2 weeks from now, but I'm going to vote aye.
Mandy Jo Haneke is a no. Counselor Lord.
Aye.
Sam McLeod.
Aye.
Thank you. Pam Rooney.
Yes.
Counselor Ryan,
Aye.
Kathy Shane,
Yes.
Jennifer Taub,
Yes.
Counselor Walker,
Yes.
Counselor Brevik,
Yes.
Counselor Kano Martin,
Yes.
Andy Churchill,
Yes.
and Anna Devon Gauthier.
Aye.
That is 12 in favor, 1 opposed. The financial order 2612-12F passes. We move on to, make my notes. Council Order 26-12C, an order appropriating from free cash for a portion of the Town of Amherst Capital Program roads and sidewalk repairs. Motion, I move, having held a public forum on March 9th, 2026, with a recommendation by the Finance Committee on March 3rd, 2026, to adopt appropriation and transfer order 12 FY 2612C, an order appropriating from free cash for a portion of the Town of Amherst Capital Program road and sidewalk repairs as shown on page 12 of the motion sheet. Is there a second?
Second, Griesmer.
Is there discussion? Did you want to give a brief finance report on this one? What was the finance vote?
Finance vote was unanimous for 2.7.
And that is what is shown on the motion sheet, I believe, on page 12.
That's as shown on the motion sheet, yes.
Yes.
And we did ask, and this is also in JCPC, it would be great to see an accounting over the last several years, including Chapter 90, because we have been voting money out of free cash every year toward roads. Just how much have we been spending would be something we'd like to see. That's not related to this motion. I'm in favor of this motion. And we all were.
Thank you. Counselor Ryan.
So I voted for the previous motion and I supported it, but not with a great deal of joy. It was mentioned earlier that, or suggested earlier, at least if I was listening correctly, that the roads are an emergency situation. The roads are not an emergency situation, okay? We've known about this for years. Last year, not this council, but the previous iteration, was asked to put $1 million into the road and it voted it down. Then I brought it back the next meeting for 750 and that passed unanimously. So it's been a history of sort of diddling around. And once again, for reasons that we've gone through already at great length, we're going to diddle around some more. In the Finance Committee report, excellent, as I said earlier, it was suggested that somehow this won't have that, it'll be a marginal impact. Now, maybe that was a staff member trying to appease the committee, or maybe that was someone on the committee. I don't know who said it, but it's not a marginal impact. It's a sizable amount of money. It's also true that we have to put about $5 million a year into the road account to even begin to just get ourselves caught up. And of course, this amount, the original proposed amount that the manager made wasn't 5 million, but it was close. Now it's far, far, far away from 5 million, and we'll be doing this again next year. So hopefully memory will not completely dissipate with this body as they speak so highly of how they want to do something about the roads with one voice, and then they will take the money away with the other. So this is not an emergency situation. This is a long-standing situation that has an answer to it, and the answer is money. Yes, we should look at other sources. We should see what we can get from the state, but everybody else is doing the same thing. We either are going to have to make a commitment through our capital fund to address this problem, and trust me, in a couple of weeks, a month or so, you'll see the roads, and they're going to be a mess. So let's try in the future to keep to the commitment that so many of you have been saying you are making to actually fund this serious need of the town, which is long-standing and not a surprise and not an emergency.
Thank you. Andy.
Yeah, I guess I'd like to hear again from Councilor Shane about what other sources we're adding to this, so we have a sense of what the lump sum is that we're sort of putting toward roads, because as she said, we have Chapter 90 money, we have JCPC money, and we have this financial order. So what does that add up to?
Kathy, would you like to respond?
It depends which year of JCPC I add. So if I do FY 26, which is the year we're in, it was 750. We Chapter 90, Sean, you can correct me, but the Chapter 90 for this year is in the 1.2 if we take the two pieces. Am I in the right range there?
I think it's 1.4 this year because of the supplemental.
1.4. So if we take the current year, it's 1.4 plus this amount would be the amount we could go out with. I mean, this is a gift from ARPA money to us to even have this amount of money. But so that those are the numbers I was adding up, Andy, that would be in this fiscal year. If we're looking at the next fiscal year, roads is dropping right now in what we're looking at to 500,000 a year. So I think one of the questions is, can we get it higher? And 500 from town, not from Chapter 90 is in there as well. And then there's a separate amount for sidewalks, but just the road number. So we were at one point several years ago at $1 million out of the capital budget, the cash flow. And it was before the building started to come online and before the ladder truck. You know, so some of it is the scrunch that's coming by taking on debt for various big projects.
Is that answered? No. Counselor Brevik.
Yeah, I think we have a lot to learn. I mean, I agree with what others have said, that there's a lot we can learn here and take away from this debate. I think being somewhat new to the council, it was helpful to hear all of the, it was a lot of discussion around this issue, and I think it was really helpful. I think one thing that I'm really taking away is it feels like this is what will happen when we keep pitting the schools against the roads. Like if it's a decision point between a really urgent and maybe emergency is maybe not the right word, but critical need, ongoing critical need that hasn't been addressed appropriately in the past. I think we're seeing those types of things with the schools and with the roads. And so I think it's what I'm taking away from this is really where else can we look? Can we look at police? Can we look in other areas that haven't been, as thoroughly investigated in terms of where we can move money from to address this issue? I think that this is where we're going to wind up when we have multiple competing critical needs that are, safety issues, equity issues. I see the roads as an equity issue. When I'm incurring costs, wear and tear on my car to drive home to my house at this point. Things like that. And that the middle school roof being a safety hazard and a health hazard to students. I mean, I think we're looking at things in that same kind of category. And so where can we look outside of critical, pressing, dangerous needs to find funding for our roads?
Jennifer.
That's exactly what I was going to say. Our UMass and Amherst College, we're down to 14,000 year-round residents. It's just not doable that we can support roads and sidewalks, but especially roads for a town of 40,000. And the majority of drivers in town are affiliated, with the University of Massachusetts. So I say this often, but I don't see how we, square the financing without Amherst College and UMass stepping up in this critical part of our infrastructure. I think that should be a priority in our conversations with those partners.
Sam.
If the roads aren't an emergency, they're certainly an urgent situation. I've received many emails from folks and we've all experienced it. So I'll support any funding for roads, and whatever we give won't be enough. We all know that. There's going to be a long-term plan associated with this, and this won't go away in a year. I'm just hoping we can, we'll see what is presented to us, but I'm hoping that we can address the most urgent, deep, what I refer to as axle breaking potholes to start. It's a tough task for town staff and others, especially this time of year, but I'll support any money for it.
Yeah. Councillor Kendall Martin.
I think Andy Churchill was before me.
He has already spoken, so we get
Oh, okay.
we recognize those who haven't spoken first.
Yeah. Oh, okay. No, I just wanted to say, I mean, I do support this money for the roads wholeheartedly. I know, been hearing about this from constituents for a really long time, and both times I ran for office, it's a huge concern, and people do expect to have better roads considering the high property taxes that they pay. But I do also feel frustrated coming in as a new counselor to the situation that we have around our infrastructure, with all the needs that we have, right? And we need a fire station. We heard last week about the DPW building. The roads are crumbling. And so I really just hope that going forward, that we can prioritize these things in a way that makes sense and that we're not pitting things against each other. I think that, we did commit a large sum of money to the library, and I'm really frustrated because that's something that there's no changing that. Like, we can't shuffle around and say, wait, we meant the roads with a priority. Oh no, wait, we meant the DP. Like, that's done. So I wish that I could do more. And I wish that we had thought about this differently. But that being said, I obviously support this money for the roads, and I understand how badly needed it is. So thank you.
Andy.
Yeah, I think we're going to be put in this position of pitting things, various parts of the community services against each other as long as we, don't have revenues that match what the needs are. And so I think going forward, I hope that we can, request and support, setting some fiscal goals, identifying what our structural deficit is, figuring out what it's going to take to close that from various sources, and whether it's pilot, whether it's UMass, whether it's economic development, housing, property taxes. I think it would be great if we could be forward looking on the revenue side, as well as trying to figure out ever more creative ways of dividing up what we have currently.
Lynn.
Thank you. Sean, I'm going to sound a little like a broken record. I'm sorry. But I really think that one of the reasons why some of us are sitting here with this larger picture is because of the financial model, where we looked initially at the 4 major capital projects and understood what it meant to have certain amounts of money for this, that, or the other thing. I know it's a very tough thing to go back to that financial model. And clearly the roads would be an additional piece to it, and there may be others, but I really would like to see us do an update and make sure that counselors have a chance to understand the full picture of the financial demands that we are faced with in this town. Thank you.
Kathy.
Just building on Andy's thinking into the future a bit. One issue in the District 1 meeting yesterday, someone who's lived in North Amherst for 30 years noted that it feels like every UMass student comes to school with a car, and that didn't used to be the case. Those cars are not registered in Amherst, and they don't pay an excise tax to Amherst. If we worked, and I was going to suggest this as part of our agreement, if UMass agreed that they couldn't park in their parking lots, if they're going to park for a semester, for a year, without registering the car in Amherst, we would get excise tax money. And perhaps with that extra excise tax money, we could allocate some of it to our roads. I mean, if you look at the intersection up by us, where there are about 2,000 students living in the apartments, you can see it's not just their cars, it's the delivery trucks that are coming down as well. So I'm thinking maybe there's something shorter term than getting the state to recognize the wear and tear on our roads and getting the pilot changed, which should be recognizing this. And I don't know how hard that would be. Legally, they're supposed to register their car if it's not domiciled in their homes, wherever their home is. And it's a substantial amount of money if they registered it. So it's just a thinking of, is there a way we could get at that issue of the Florida license? But I'm not even talking about other parts of Massachusetts. I'm talking about lots of other states that are driving around on our roads and not paying excise taxes.
Seeing no other hands, we will move to a vote on this motion, which is to adopt appropriation transfer order FY 2612C, roads and sidewalk repairs. We start with Mandy. Mandy is an aye. Counselor Lord.
Aye.
Sam McLeod,
Aye.
Pam Rooney,
Yes.
Counselor Ryan,
Aye.
Kathy Shane,
Yes.
Jennifer Taub,
Yes.
Counselor Walker,
Yes.
Counselor Brevik,
Yes.
Counselor Cano Martin,
Yes.
Andy Churchill,
Yes.
Anna Devon Gauthier,
Aye.
and Lynn Grisimer.
Aye.
That is 13-0 unanimous. That motion passes. We will now take a 10-minute break. We will resume at 8:15. We have the Charter Review Committee and reports. That's it. Just Charter Review. If it was just reports, I would have moved on. But the Charter Review
might take a
that might take a little bit.
I think I'm gonna go.
Okay.
It looks like I might be able to stay and not get out of here too late, but
Who knows what will happen with that?
in 10 minutes.
You got it up. Yeah. We'll see you back online.
Thank you. I guess I should. Today was just like my first day back at like work in real life, so it's just felt like a really long day.
Yeah.
Thanks, Andy. I'll stop.
Yeah. Yeah. Sounds good. No, that's not the one. Those in the prevailing party can bring it up. Non-prevailing needs additional information. So prevailing can always. Yeah, so you could do it, I could do it with a no with additional information, but anyone with a yes. I think the yeses are at the current meeting or the next immediate meeting, and the nos are only at the next meeting. So anyone can. Anyone can. Yeah. Anyone can.
Don't give it back to me. Just set it somewhere.
What? No, just push it in. Just push it in. I'm not using it. I'm just trying to find a document. Trying to find a document I want up. Like, where did I put it? Still have those names on them, so.
No rest for the weary. I appreciate you. Sorry you have to work so many late hours. Oh, wow. They sent this via email today. Thank you for what you do.
Jennifer is that one. Yes. Kathy's this one. And Alicia left, so tomorrow. She'll rejoin it.
And Andy and
Valley CDC. Took a while to get to us, January 26th. If you want to do the organizing for it, you can. I haven't submitted the form yet to Angela, so I figured I'd wait till at least it passed before submitting the form. Yeah. Yeah. This one, we basically just need a mic. Yeah. Okay. That's Tibet. 9. There's a, I think that's the elementary hearing. We should all be coming back. It's 8:15. For those that are online, please turn on your video so that we know you are here. And for counselors that are in the town room, please rejoin your seat. Okay, we have a quorum that are ready to go, so we're gonna go. We will reach out to Counselor Walker when she rejoins on Zoom. The intermunicipal agreement item 8B was determined to not be needed. So we are pulling it off the agenda, and I'm going to say why. It was included, the authorization was included in the financial order that just passed. So we do not have to vote it a second time. So it's not that we're not voting it. We just didn't realize when we put it on the agenda that it was included in the financial order. So it was sort of a redundant thing that we've pulled off the agenda for that reason. The bylaw review committee charge was passed on consent. The dissolution of the transportation advisory committee was pulled off the agenda because it is not a committee. It was not a committee that was created by the council. It was created by the manager. So we thank the transportation advisory committee for their service. The manager will be doing that himself too, and probably speaking to that in his report. But that is why that has been pulled off. It was not in our role to do anything with it. Air and property was done on consent, which leaves us with the only other item of business tonight, and then we move to reports, is the Charter Review Committee recommendation first read. So in your packet, it was not labeled necessarily well. There was a proposed motion. It was labeled 2026-03-05 TC. I don't know what the whole title was. TC Discussion on Charter Review Committee Report. The very first page of it was a proposed motion to act. And then the next page included just the quick summary from the final report of what each item, what the numbers refer to, 1, 2, 3, all the way to 22. And then the last pages 3 to 8 were a chart that describes what the proposed language change for action would be. And what the action is according to the current proposed motion and what the straw poll results were. This is still color coded, for red being what the Charter Review Committee proposed, blue being an addition or deletion to that proposal or a change to that proposal. Green being also what they proposed. Red is deletions, green is additions, blue is non-Charter Review Committee proposals that were discussed and potentially agreed upon or partially agreed upon in straw polls. So things like what's on there on the screen right now is the addition of the word soul that KP Law recommended in number 2. So the way this chart works, in a sense, is the proposed motion is to act on the recommendations through those potential five bullet points with consideration given to the attached review discussion report, which is that chart. They will not be, they'll be in different parts on the motion sheet eventually. But that chart gives us the ability to say, hey, if this is going to KP Law, this is sort of the language we're looking at so that they know what language to come back, especially if it wasn't part of the final review committee. For example, in the final report, the number 4 about president and vice president terms, the council in its straw polls did not like 4, which is what the final report proposed. They liked 3 years. And so what would get sent to KP Law if the motion as proposed passes would be 3, not 4, because we kind of already had that discussion. It's kind of hard to understand, I know. But the goal is for tonight to look at those 5 bullet points on the first page that say, where are these recommendations going? What's the final intent? You'll see that one of those bullet points is empty. So, which is the 43B process. So we never really as a council talked about if we're going to amend the charter, are we going to do it through a special act process or through the 43B process? So I put them all in the special act process for this discussion purposes tonight. we should discuss it as a council. Which process do we want to use? The vote of a council then directly to the people, which is the 43B process, or a special act, which is a vote of the council then going to the legislature, who then may or may not request a vote of the people. The third bullet point is sending to GOL for discussion recommendation. That discussion and recommendation has a lot of leeway in it. At least that's the intention of this motion. Some things were discussed in straw polling where we'd kind of like to change it, but we don't like the language from the final report. We need a discussion on language. Other straw polling was, we really think this should be maybe a rule change, not a charter change. So all of them are lumped into this third bullet point of send to GOL for GOL to come back. The fourth bullet point is Finance Committee for substantive discussion. The two that are included in that were the two that were the two final report recommendations that were financial section article items. And then the last one was to table the following recommendation. That's essentially the equivalent of taking no action. Tonight's discussion is number one. For those that we have two things to do tonight before we vote on a potential motion in 2 weeks, maybe three things. The first is special act or 43B or both. We could choose some to go one way or some to go the other. And then the second one is, does anyone want to move anything from one bullet point to another bullet point? That's the big one here, is we're trying to airport this various ways in the act. Anything within the special act or 43B process would come back to the council after hopefully the manager asks KP Law to prepare the final motion. And then we would vote the final change at that point with the final language. Although the chart gives a preview of what that language might look like. Anything sent to GOL or finance would come back to the council for potential action or no action based on what those recommendations were, which could then be another special act or 43B process or a rule change or all of that. And then tabling is what it means, is tabling. Same with if it was sent to finance committee. So we're going to start with, if we're going to ask that the charter be changed and vote to change the charter, which process do people want to use, or both? If that's too hard to discuss on its own without talking about specific recommendations, we can literally just go through any of the numbers and say, where do we want these numbers in this motion? Feel free to also comment on the language of the motion. This is an attempt, and it truly is an attempt, which is why this is a first read, to try and get next meetings much more easily digestible. So we will start with Kathy. Hopefully everyone sort of understood that opening.
Okay. As people might remember, at the last council meeting, I was not here for the part when you discussed these. So I'm not sure I completely understand the difference on the two things you said, which route we're going. I'd be happy if we got language that we all agreed on, whatever is the easiest route to go to get this done. So the difference between going through special legislation or going through 3B, which is, I don't understand that. That's my first comment. And my second comment is, when I look at the list in your first bullet, and I know you want to take comments on that later, Mandy, but I just want to say, I would want to remove one altogether. It's number 4 on term limits. I didn't get a chance to express myself on that. But I am in agreement with the list of 1, 2, 3, all those other numbers that you've got there. So I don't know how you're going to frame the two on how are we packaging the changes? And that's your question of which route do we go? And then how do we get to what's on that? We definitely want to do this list. And I'm fine, by the way, with the refer to GOL and the refer to finance. So I have literally just a question on number 4, which is term limits.
I'll make the note on number 4 as we get to them, maybe. Councillor Cano Martin.
Yes, I just wanted to request that recommendation 11 not be tabled and that it be added to one of the first 3 bullet points.
Okay, I'll make a note of that as we get through. Jennifer?
Yes, I just wanted to say the section, I think it was maybe 2.6 on measures, it's really the quantum of votes.
Yes.
I don't understand any of it. It is so, there's got to be a way we can make the language more streamlined. If somebody asked me what the quantum was for different measures, I could not, based on that, tell them.
It is right now slated in to go to GOL for further discussion, which would leave it with GOL to figure out the best way forward on that and come back with something that might be understandable by everyone and easily.
I had one other question, though. It says, or that it would either be by this, it would be according to the charter or the state. So yes, we can't have a quantum of vote that is inconsistent or conflicts with state law. But if it's in, aren't we changing it in the charter? It sometimes says as per, we could change it, but then it may be different in the charter, but aren't we changing the charter to be, it almost sounded like we could agree on a quantum of vote, but it might conflict with the charter. I was confused with that. And I'm probably it's probably saying very confused how I'm asking the question, but.
Yeah,
It said it can't, it said we have to abide by state law or the charter.
Yeah, so okay, now I get your question. So the phrase except in the event a higher quantum of vote is required by general laws or this charter. And then KP Law recommended, provided that a quorum is present, the affirmative vote of majority of members present is required to adopt any measure. So state law has sometimes a 2/3 requirement on various things, but so does the charter. There's a section in the charter that requires 10 votes to, I think that's about some sort of counselor taking a position in the town after being a counselor or something. So sometimes there's 10 votes required. Sometimes there's 2/3 in the charter required. Sometimes there's
Changing the charter?
not those sections. So this is this section would say, if the charter somewhere else says that particular vote needs a higher quantum, that's the quantum that prevails. Everything else where there's no mention of a quantum, this is what the quantum is. That's what 2.6 means. But the question is, how simplified is that? And that's what would be being sent to GOL, basically, trying to simplify. Because right
Thank
now
you,
it's
GOL.
crazy.
With
But that's
that.
the recommendation at this point. Counselor Ryan.
So just first a clarification and then a question that I think all of us are thinking about and we'll try to pose and see if it gets anywhere. But the clarification, understand that bullets 3 and 4 come back to us because they go to a committee and they come back to us for action. Bullet 1 also eventually comes back to us after it goes to the attorney, it comes back to us. And do we actually vote on each individual item? Or what happens to bullet 1 once the lawyers are done? If we send anything to the lawyers and it comes back to us, what happens then?
So it would come back to a vote of the council for the specific language and the request of, say, if it's bullet 1, the special act, and a request to send to the legislature. So it would look similar to what we've done with ranked choice voting and all of that, that has specific language that would become the special act. That might mean that some of these are grouped into one special act and another set is grouped into a second special act, depending on how it would be. And then the council would vote that special act, sort of request for special act. And at that point, we could request 12 different special acts, or we could request one. If we requested one, we might take the vote as separate paragraphs to begin with. And then a full thing. There's a different ways that vote can happen. Things can be divided out. Things can, there's many different ways it could happen if the council wants to vote every single recommendation separately and see where they are, and then maybe vote a full whatever passes that way into a special act. That could be done, but this would not actually vote to change the charter at this time.
Right.
This is just saying, hey, we're leaning towards and we support changing the charter in these ways at this time. Give us the language on how we do it.
It would be interesting. So this is to my question then, or to the issue of special act versus MGL Chapter 43B. How we're going to frame that discussion, which way we want to go. And right, can I raise that now?
Yes.
Because I absolutely clueless. I have no idea. I mean, in the end, I'm thinking, well, yeah, what are the pros? What are the cons? I'm thinking of the poor voters. I mean, it would also be helpful to me if I had any sense of how this has played out in other communities. Have they really sent 22 separate items to the voters and on a ballot, and the voters had to go through each 22? Or have they really sent like groups of 3 or 4 things glommed together and the voters voted on each little group? It just sounds terrifying to me, but maybe it happens all the time. But we have so many items here, whether it goes to the state or whether it goes to the voter, whether it goes in groups or all 22 items all piled together. How does anyone envision anyone voting on this finally if they're either the state and or the voters here in Amherst?
So
we can do it. I can see we can work our way through 22 items. We've already started that process. But when it finally gets to the voters, what do people envision this looking like?
I'll try to summarize what KP Law summarized at the work session. Going the Chapter 43B process requires a 2/3 vote of the council to pass the amendment, and then it goes to the next regular town election, which for us is in 2027, in November of 2027. So we could vote the language in May, say, of 2026, and the voters would see it in November of 2027, and it would require sending every voting household a summary of the language. It's set forth in state law. But the basics are 2/3 for Chapter 43B, 2/3 vote approval at the council, vote of the people at a regular town election in November 2027. In the middle of that, it goes to the Attorney General. They do something with it. KP Law explained it a lot better. They talk about it and review it and come back to us with something. Special act, majority vote of the council, request for our representative Dom to file a special act, a bill in the House of Representatives. It goes to hearing at the House of Representatives. It gets reported out. It potentially gets voted on. Then the Senate votes on it, and then it's signed just like any other bill. KP Law said that normally takes about a year. We're at the end of the session or getting close to the end of the session, so who knows whether that might be faster than November of 2027, a vote of the people. But majority vote, then it gets filed as a bill and it goes through the bill process at the State House. That's the special act process. So those are our 2 options. KP Law said that if you do the special act process, it is possible for some items that the legislature might say, we'll only pass this if the vote of if you send it to the people at an election and they also pass it. So it might not avoid a vote of the people for some of the items. KP Law did in the work session identify the ones they thought the legislature might balk at passing a special act without a vote of the people. So you might want to look at the KP Law memo for that. But that's sort of the difference between the 2. Special act may be quicker, does not require most of the time a vote of the people, can be done in however many special acts you want in terms of bills. Vote of the people, many towns group. KP Law said many towns group them as sort of the more basic ones that are very much ministerial into one big group. And then if there's a couple more that they thought that people think are a little more major, and I put major in quotes, bigger that might be more contentious or controversial or less supportive to get the ministerial ones through without running into problems with the others, they might, some towns split out 1 or 2. And so you wouldn't necessarily have 22 or 15, you might have 5 or 4. But the council would be able to decide how to group them. And that might be if we use the 43B process, part of what KP Law recommends when they come back with language, we recommend these be grouped together and we recommend these go separate with language. Does that help? Okay. Pam,
And I was just going to confirm that whether we send something to GOL or FinCom, they end up coming back as recommendations and discussions to us before we even take the vote. It's not like they're going to vote and we don't have to.
no, they would make a recommendation to the council like any typical referral to GOL, but they would be having substantive discussions, not just a clarity, consistency, and actionability discussion.
Point of information.
Yes.
All of them would come back to the council
Yeah.
for action, not just the ones that are referred, but the ones that go to the attorneys for language would come back for the council to act.
Counselor Brevick.
And just a quick clarifying question on our acting. What has to be done by that 90-day deadline? So do these have to go, particularly for the first one, let's say if they go out to KP Law, and do they have to come back to us and we vote on them by that 90-day deadline, or what exactly do we have to do by that deadline?
So our goal with this motion is to set a precedent that you'll notice it says in accordance with Charter Section 9.6 to act on the recommendations as follows, essentially. So our goal is to say this is our action on them. We're going this way with one group, this way with another group, this way with another group. And then we'll come back with the language or the modified language and all. So our goal with this motion is this motion would satisfy the charter 90-day requirement voted if we vote it by March 20 or April 5 or whatever, but at the next meeting. Andy?
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure that we are going to take, when each of these come back to us, we would take each of them in turn and vote up or down on them, whether to put them forward, correct?
Or group them.
I mean, we will take each of the suggestions and say, yes, we want to put that forward, or no, we don't, right?
Are you meaning within this motion or if this motion passes?
If this motion passes, we're going to go to number one and we're going to say yes or no. And then we're going to go to number two and say yes or no. And then we're going to say, how do we want to do it?
I'm still confused. So this motion has them grouped and we would vote one vote on this motion. Yeah, that's what I'm trying to figure out.
I think you're saying we're not voting on the individual pieces, correct?
What we're trying to vote here is how to get them considered in a form that we can finally vote on them, right?
Yes.
So they will all come back to us.
They would, and it's possible that they would be potentially voted on as various groups or individually.
But we could pull them
You
out
can
of a
pull
group.
them out in motions to divide easily.
Okay.
Yes.
So we won't be just passing these on without seeing them again and saying
No.
as a group whether we support them or not.
No.
Okay.
Lynn.
May I add
Yes,
something?
Athena.
Counselor Churchill, Counselor Churchill, I think the intent is to indicate at this point if you're supportive or not of one of them, so that we don't go through the process of asking an attorney for language or asking GOL to spend time considering one of them that you know at this point you don't support. If you know at this point you don't support one of them, then the discussion ought to be to table what that recommendation that's not supported.
Yeah.
But when they come back, all of them will come back, and then you'll have another opportunity to take that final action to adopt a special act or do the 43B process or whatever.
That's a good explanation. We're trying to get the general consensus so that the attorney, for example, if it's going to an attorney isn't spending time on something that doesn't have a chance of passing the council. That doesn't mean it would automatically pass when it comes back. But if there are 12 counselors that would say, never vote for it in the charter, it shouldn't be in bullet 1 or 2. It should be, someone should try and put it into table, say.
Or
so this set of numbers here is based on the straw polls. That doesn't mean the straw polls are accurate because they were just straw polls and people have thought about things. But this placement here, other than moving between special act and 43B, I threw them all in special act, is based on straw polls. Okay. Lynn.
I want to go through each of the scenarios, kind of worst case, best case. Okay. And make sure that we understand. So suppose we vote on the ones for special acts, okay? The worst case is they don't get to it in this session, which I think is a question. It goes into next session, and we would pray that they would act and let us know so that we could get it on the ballot by 2027. But it's possible that if they don't act, it wouldn't go until the ballot of 2029.
Unless we chose to just vote in spring of 2027 to go the 43
That's
process.
the
Yes.
special act
Yes.
issue. The 43B process, we need to formulate what's going to go on the ballot. Yes, the Attorney General does some magic with it. And that would go on the ballot for 2027.
Yes.
Okay. And there is no legislative process involved.
Correct.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure people understood what could happen time-wise with 43B versus with the legislative action.
Yeah.
And I just, to be clear, we have 3 special acts that they've never acted on. So.
Sam.
Thank you, Mandy. In looking through the list, it's certainly a complicated document. I envision it would be a challenge for the community to understand all the details of all of this in a single voting experience or even grouped. As I look at this list, and my understanding is that you're hoping that we would come up with 3 recommendations today to send them to different locations for review. Am I correct that an assumption and a precursor to this is that the edits in the language are assumed? Because my understanding was that as we were discussing in the lean towards straw votes, that it was just something that would be discussed again. And one of the items, number 6, was particularly uncertain for a number of folks that were in the audience in the town council, myself being one of them. Number 4, I don't know about, but those are 2 items that I put a star next to. And if I understand correctly, we're seeking to move them towards review in the current edited form as opposed to discussion it further. And then it would come back as something we would look at in a recommended final form.
So for those going to GOL or finance, the sort of column with the language is based on discussion, but particularly for number 6, the adoption of measures. The second column that says refer to GOL says see memo that was written that has all those options that sort of says, here's what happens if you do it this way, this way, this way. Here's what the rules look like and the voting quantums look like. Because that clearly at the work session was a discussion that did not have time and needed more time. So the language that is in the chart for that one in particular is really just what was presented by the final report. But GOL would be, my assumption is GOL would begin its discussion with where we've ended our discussion of what's going on. For number 4, which is the term limits, and for those that are proposed for the special act or the 40, well, there's nothing for 43B right now, but for the special act for the charter change, the assumption at this point is that the attorney would base their return of the language to adopt on this chart. So including all language that is in this. So for say number 4, if that stays in sending to attorney for a special act, it would be based on a 3 consecutive 1-year term, not a 4 consecutive 1-year term. And I did that based on the straw polls. Again, We could discuss it tonight. We could discuss to change it. We could discuss language changes. We can take sort of, again, I would call them straw polls again because of, and in sort of trying to move things from one item to another, we would poll again because we're not doing formal motions to amend at this point. So when we get to Kathy's request, Counselor Cano Martin's request, I have a couple I'd love to talk about moving. We'll do it as a straw poll. Where do people want it? Which bullet point do they want it? Or if there's requests to rediscuss some of the language, particularly with the ones that would be being sent to KP Law, we should discuss the language for those. But what's shown in the chart is sort of the language that KP Law, the intention is that that's the language KP Law would base their motion language that they'd return to us on. Yes, Sam.
Thank you. So, yeah, my impression at the last meeting that was number 6 was not a clear vote of the council. And I'm not suggesting that the vote wouldn't come out the same as the straw polls indicated. But it seemed to me that a number of folks are saying, hey, I want more information. And what I see it now is being put in a form to be considered going forward. And I think it might be beneficial to have further discussion on that for understanding purposes, not just for myself, but just in general.
Yeah.
So I would advocate for that, just for a common understanding of what in fact is what the existing situation is and what is being proposed via this recommendation.
So if I'm understanding you, you would propose for that one, I'm not sure what the motion inclusion would be, but a further more in-depth discussion prior to referring to GOL. Is that what you're suggesting?
Yeah,
at
it
this
seems to
point
me
is?
that that's in order from my perspective. I'm just one individual because I saw significant uncertainty, not in terms of how individuals might vote, but in terms of actual understanding. And rather than rush to move it, since it is, I believe, a significant motion dealing with the needed totals for votes, I think I understand what it says, but I think it would be helpful to clarify where we are currently and where this will take us under the proposed language as presented here.
Okay.
So I would like to see that happen. I'd do it if I would.
Okay. Let's hold off on any motion at this time. We have to get back to 4, 11, 6. I have a couple, but Counselor Ryan.
So I'm inclined to sort of start at the end of this whole process, which is like, it looks like the earliest this would be November 2027. And then, so that seems the earliest that this could actually be formally acted on and enacted.
No.
Well, so I'm trying to think out, and maybe this is not the time to do it. Maybe we should look at individual items first, but I'm just thinking from the end of it. I'd like to make the case for following Chapter 43B as an option as opposed to the special act. Do people want to have that discussion now or not, or do you want to wait?
So let's take it this way. Hold on. So we have to act on every single item by 2 weeks from tonight.
Right.
So the end is not necessarily November. I want to say that. So let's try this. Kathy, you wanted to propose moving 4 from, we're going to start with this and then we'll deal with yours, because it sounds like you want to move everything that's in the first bullet point from special act all the way to 43B, right? But let's get some that are moving out of special act. If the proposal, Kathy, your proposal was number 4. Number 4 is the term limit on council leadership, and you would like to see it moved from special act to where?
I would like to see it moved, period. And to the extent, not in charter, to the extent there's a genuine belief that we should have a term limit, I would just put it in the rules of procedure so we can live with it for a while and see whether we like it or not. I wouldn't embed it in the charter.
So your request,
So so I was doing it irrespective of which way we went. I would just not put it in a charter change. 'Cause
so
it-
your request is to move number 4 in the motion from the first bullet point of special act to the third bullet point of GOL. So GOL discusses potential changes to the rules of procedure or the charter and comes back with a recommendation.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. I wanted to, you have it. I wanted to remove it from the list of charter changes, whereas I looked at that other set, I was somewhat indifferent to which process we used, but I just want to point on the processes, and George, you were trying to figure time. Several of these, not all of them, we can do anytime we want. A few we can't because we're literally changing, like the definition of public forum. It's written in the charter and we can't change that. So a few of the other things, if we decided to simplify the way we do measures, we could do it in rule. We could just do
Some
it.
of them.
You know, in other words, we
But
could.
only one person at a time.
You know, so I'm just thinking, as I went through these, charter changes are permanent changes and we have to live with them. If there's some things we like the idea of and want to try it out, we can do it in rules of procedure. Some things, if we want to do it, we can't even try it out, like the definition of public, we have to change it. It's cumbersome the way it's written. So I go through those recommendations with that screen, but I was comfortable with what Mandy had done as a grouping, you know, except for 4. I went 1, 2, 3, 4. You had a large number of them listed as whether it's in special act or putting it to vote. And the reason I said special act is I feel like we can, putting some of these nuances to vote by people in the town feels crazy to me. You know, so, and a special act will happen at some point, and we can do many of them if we want to, while waiting for the legislature to do. But there is a discrete number we can't do because they are our local law. So so I think I would go special act, but I wanted to remove 4 altogether.
So Kathy's, hold on, we're going to deal with Kathy's proposal. Kathy's proposal is to, on the motion, Athena, can you just scroll up to page 1, the motion? Is to move the number 4 from the first bullet point to the third bullet point, so it's listed under the GOL section there. Athena has highlighted it right there. We are going to straw poll this. Is there any discussion at this time on that movement? Keep in mind, it is nearly 9 p.m. and we have probably 4 or 5 others of these to discuss tonight. This is not a final vote. This is just a straw poll to try and get these all so that in 2 weeks when we vote, the vote goes a little quicker. Pam, you wanted to discuss this one.
I'd like to discuss the fact that I'm going to suggest that the first bullet and second bullet actually be combined. To me, it doesn't matter at this point if something is going into a special act or to chapter 43B. I think that KP Law is going to be looking at it no matter which way we go. So I don't care which bucket it goes into at this point. Can we say special act or 43B? To amend the charter for the following recommendations and just combine it into one bucket.
So let's deal with that after we deal with moving number 4 out of that list, and then we'll talk about the potential for combining into one bucket, okay? So we're going to straw poll moving number 4 from special act to sending to referring to GOL. The way we did straw polls last time, let's see if this works this time. Is that we all raised our hands in the Zoom window and then I read those out. I don't know whether Athena wants that or not. It seemed to, will that be okay, Athena? That way we don't have to roll call it in a sense. So.
Point of order.
Yes, Andy.
So if we are voting to pull number 4 out of this category and send it to GOL, are we expecting GOL to decide whether it should be in the rules or in the charter, or what are we expecting them to do with it? I thought Kathy was looking to basically table it, but
She did not ask for tabling. She asked for it to potentially be in the rules, which would be a referral to GOL.
so GOL would then make a recommendation whether it should be a charter amendment or whether it should go into
Yes.
the rules.
I did specify in what I've
Although-
put here, recommendation for a rule change. That's not elegantly worded, but to GOL to recommend a rule change on number 4.
Kathy,
I actually was doing something stronger. I'm fine for GOL. I didn't want it in the charter, so it wasn't a recommendation to go in the charter or not. It was to consider, do we want to have it in our own rules? And we try putting term limits in and see how it works. So I didn't want to make it a legislative change in the charter. So I wasn't asking GOL to within a week or 2 weeks to report back to us whether I was actually asking for a vote to not have it be in the charter change. But I'm happy to consider it if we wanted to live with term limits for a while. And I think there's nothing prohibiting us legislatively from doing that to ourselves.
so Kathy has asked that it be within the referral to GOL, but for a rule change consideration, substantive rule change consideration. So that is what the straw poll is on. If you raise your hand, we're going to have 2 raise hand sessions. The first raise hand is going to be to keep it under the special act consideration bullet point. The second time I ask for a raise hand, it will be to move it to GOL for a potential rule change recommendation. So if you want,
You have a hand up.
Counselor Cano Martin.
Yeah, can we make a third option that we would like to see it in both?
You want both a special act and a rule change?
Yeah, because I think we could make a rule change more quickly and then we could wait for the special act process, which is going to take much longer anyway. So
then just raise your hand for both.
okay.
I was going to say point of order. I don't know that that would be necessary. If a counselor wants this as a rule change at any point, they can also propose it tomorrow in the exact wording for GOL to take up. It doesn't necessarily need to be part of this process.
Correct. But yeah, so raise your hand. So we're going to, if you would like it as part of number 4, term limits for leadership as part of a special act under this motion that will be brought to the council next week, raise your hand in the Zoom application and I will read those names out.
Counselor McLeod had his hand up beforehand.
Did you want to speak, Sam? You need to hold.
Thank you. Sorry to bring this up again. Special Act versus 43B. Since we're
Charter change. We're just dealing with charter change right now. Wherever that ends up, because we haven't decided how. So right now they're just listed in special act, but assume charter change.
I thought I heard you say Special Act.
I am, because that's where it is in the bullet point now, but we haven't dealt with how we're going to change the charter yet.
Okay, very good.
So I'm using special act as charter change. Shorthand, okay? If you want to keep it in the special act for charter change for term limits for council leadership, please raise your hand in the Zoom application now.
And the alternative vote, forgive me.
Would be GOL, rule change. So special act right now has Breivik, Cano, Martin, Lord, Walker, and Churchill. Welcome, Councillor Walker. We didn't catch you when you came in, but welcome. So that is 5 for special act. For those who wish to move it to the rule change GOL refer, please raise your hand now. That is Haneke, Cano, Martin, Rooney, Devlin, Gauthier, McLeod, Taub, Ryan, Griesemer, and Shane. That is 9 in rule change. For the straw poll, we're going to move it from special act to rule change based on the straw poll results at this time. So we're going to move on to Councillor Cano Martin asked for 11 to be considered, and Councillor Cano Martin, number 11 is the council with the power to hire its own legal counsel for a secondary opinion. It was put in table based on the straw poll of 6 counselors leaning towards opposing it, 4 leaning towards supporting, and 3 unsure. So it was put in table for that reason. Counselor Cano Martin, where are you proposing to move it to?
I would move it to, I guess wherever we decide if we're gonna do special act or 43B. I don't know what we've decided, but one of those two.
So charter change.
Yeah.
Okay. So the options right now, oh, I haven't unraised my hand. The options right now are to keep it under table or to move to what I'm going to call special act. Just for sake of ease. All those that would like to keep it under table, which is where it was proposed in the published motion. the
Sorry,
draft
Mandy,
motion. Oh,
point of
sorry, Counselor Brevik, you had your hand up.
That's okay. Just point of clarification, I guess. Just can we also vote on referring it to GOL? Can we?
Sure,
I
we'll
think
add
if you're-
GOL as an option.
just because I think it feels like it's either don't talk about it at all or put it up the highest. So I feel like there should be options in between if people just want to see it considered further.
Sure. So we will do 3 and then we'll see which one gets the most. So it is currently listed in table. So we're going to start with table and then we're going to go to special act or charter change. And then we're going to go to GOL for further consideration.
It's currently listed as table, meaning no action.
No action. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So if we're going to do this straw poll the same way we did the last one, if you would like to leave it where it's listed now, which is table, no action, please raise your hand. Hands raised include Haneke, Shane, Griesemer, Churchill, and Ryan. That is 5 for leaving it as no action. If you would like to do a charter change, I'm just going to try charter change at this point. Please raise your hand now. We have Cano, Martin, and Taub. And if you would like to send it to GOL, please raise your hand now. We have Cano, Martin, Taub, McLeod, Rooney, Devlin, Gauthier, Brevik, and Walker. So that's 7 for GOL, sending it to GOL. Okay. We're going to come back to yours, number 6, because that one's much more difficult. I wanted to propose a number of these, but I'm going to stick with number 14 and 16. I want to consider these together and move them to GOL consideration. I want to rediscuss those two. 14 and 16 are the public forum definitions. I would love GOL to discuss whether it's necessary to actually put the definitions in the charter or whether they can be in the rules. We saw tonight what in the charter potentially results in. So I would like to move that one from charter change to GOL discussion. Both of them, 14 and 16, one's council, one's school committee. So that's one of my proposals to move on the motion. Andy and Anna, you have discussion on that? And Sam, did you have discussion on that? No. Okay. Andy.
Yeah, I mean, what we saw tonight is the exact reason why the Charter Review Committee suggested that the definition be stricken and then the description of public forums for both council and school committee would say that it's back and forth discussion, but it's not 50-50 time-wise. So there was a reason why we proposed that to deal with, so that we don't have to sit around doing this time thing that is mathematical and time wasting.
Right. Anna.
Can I clarify the 90 days piece? And so I'm looking at this as GOL chair, and I'm looking at the other things that GOL has, and I do not disagree that this should go to GOL, but I'm trying to be very cognizant of my committee's time and how we are able to get to things and then bring them back to the council from this, as well as the other obligations that we have. So could you clarify the deadlines for things coming out of GOL? That doesn't necessarily impact whether or not people, in my mind, whether or not people should vote to refer. But I'm aware that we're referring a whole lot right now.
The proposed motion has June 29th for a return from GOL. That was just a date. We can discuss the date.
Okay.
And it has a July 20 return date for finance, because we thought when we were discussing dates that June 29 would be cruel for finance.
I hear you.
So the dates are up for discussion.
Is it a report back, or is it a report and recommendation?
Report.
Okay, thank you. That was my clarifying point. Thank you.
Okay. Kathy, discussion on 14 and 16 moving from charter change to GOL discussion.
I think, I'm not sure, are you proposing it just gets removed altogether from the charter and we define it and we put it in rules of procedure? In which case, I'm not in favor of that. So I think the simple change that was recommended is we're trying to get rid of that 50-50 time that adds to the awkwardness, and define it any way we want that gets rid of that is fine with me.
I am not proposing, I have not proposed moving the proposal to delete the definition in 1.7. This is the added green. 16 is up here now, the added green, which is, well, there's a couple of added greens for public forum in number 14. It's dedicated solely to the topics required by the section. And so that I'm proposing a GOL discussion instead of adding to the charter immediately, because that means we have to call it as a separate meeting instead of part of a regular meeting. That would be like public hearings right now are part of a regular meeting. But adding that green language would require continuing to call it as a separate meeting with separate minutes and separate everything. I thought more discussion on the 14 days notice of time and date. Just further thing, doesn't mean it can't change the charter, but I thought it could use some further discussion as to whether the charter actually needs to have all of that in green or whether that could be in the rules. I'm not proposing changing, getting rid of the reference to a public forum. Yeah.
Okay, so you don't necessarily like the green language that's been added.
Right.
But you don't mind getting rid of the 50% of the time.
Oh, no, I think we need to.
And then I think the town attorney added some wording too. So you're asking GOL, so it's Anna's point, you're asking GOL to say, what language would we want to see in the charter that everybody likes?
Versus the rules, because the rules are easier to change than the charter. Yeah.
But you still have to define what it is if you're calling for it.
You don't necessarily have to define the definition of public forum in the.
So you could just say there shall be a public forum, period.
Yeah.
And then later on, someone figures out what that is.
Yes.
I like that a lot.
Hence my request to move it from charter change to rule to see if that's what we want to do. So we're going to straw poll 14 and 16, moving from the charter change bullet points to the GOL bullet points. If you want to keep it, we're always starting with where it was initially put tonight. If you want to keep it as a charter change bullet point, please raise your hand. We have Churchill and Griesemer.
Sorry, I don't have clarity on this. Can I just ask a question before
Sure.
we continue? Couldn't KP Law tell us what language should or should not be in this, as far as, whether we need the 14 days notice? I mean, I'm worried about overloading GOL with something that's fairly minor.
So right now, the proposed motion is to send to KP Law things we want changed in the charter with ideas of that language, the specific language. And if we don't know the language, send it to GOL to discuss the language.
Point of clarification, GOL will not be mad if one of the ones that you give us is easy to just knock out of the park quickly.
Okay, so if you want to keep the 14 and 16 in the charter change bullet point, please raise your hand now. We have no hands raised. If you want to move it to the GOL bullet point, please raise your hand now. We have Haneke, McLeod, Taub, Devlin Gauthier, Churchill, Cano, Martin, Walker, Rooney, Ryan, Brevik, Shane, and Griesemer. So 12. Okay. Are there any other at this time people would like to consider moving? Can we see the motion again?
I have a question.
Lynn.
Regardless of what GOL thinks might go in rules of procedure, there is going to have to be a charter change to get rid of that 50%.
Yes, that's actually number 1, which is listed under the main motion for special act. Delete the definition of public forum.
Got it. Thank you.
Kathy. Oh, Sam.
Thank you, Mandy. I'm not sure if I want to remove it or not, but I'd like to discuss the language of number 6 before we vote to send it to a particular destination.
Okay. So 6, the language, can you put 6 up? So the language right now, let me pull up a different document for me, is to essentially just move. So 6 itself is not changing the definition of measure. That is number 3, I believe, which is a different recommendation. That recommendation is sitting, and so what 6 is doing at this point is simply moving 210A, that affirmative vote of a majority of the full town council necessary for passage of a bylaw, into 26C, without changing any quantum of votes required, because the definition of measure changes some of the quantum of votes. So right now, proposal number 6 is simply putting all of the vote quantums in the same section. But when we had our discussion at the work session on this, there was, I'll say, I proposed present and voting, and a number of counselors were unsure which they wanted, and it became very clear at one point that all of it, given how everything in the charter is worded, was confusing. So in last week's meeting packet, I created, I think it was 5 different charts. That doesn't alleviate any confusion necessarily, that sort of gave all of the options for voting quantums and what the language would look like. Because the Charter Review Committee's goal from their final report was to, in changing the definition of measure and in moving this here, was to simplify the how many things need, how many different voting quantums there are. So they added everything into measure to get rid of non-measures having a different voting quantum. In creating the chart, which was requested by a counselor to hopefully ease stuff, what I realized was that definition didn't really simplify the voting quantums at all if the goal was to simplify knowing how many votes you need. Hence the large number of charts. So the recommendation, based on, I know there was a majority that said support present, but based on the conversation and based on that creation of a chart, it seemed like the council needed a discussion as to how simplified does it want its voting quantums to be. And until we know how simplified that is, it's hard to come up with language. The easiest one is, can you, Athena, put up, just pick one of the last packet's document from, I think it was the 23rd, that had the voting quantum one in it. Was item 7, charter voting options, from the 23rd's packet, February 23rd's packet, because it'll be easier to explain seeing that. So once we share this, if the highlighted, this one right now is our current voting quantum in the rules. The whole right box, that's our rules. So hold on, this is the rules. And our rules, because our charter refers to things like full town council sometimes as to what the vote is required, or sometimes refers to those present, but not the full town council, and other times refers to present and voting, means that sometimes we have votes that require 9 versus 2/3. Some require 2/3 of those present and voting. And so we have all these different layers of voting quantums right now. The ones that are highlighted are those that move depending on what the language in 2.6c says. And so if you want to simplify and have less numbers of categories, I think, Athena, the simplest on this is the very last one. If you go to the last page, and I'm not saying I propose this, but this is what these charts show, and this is what referral to GOL could talk about. You look at this chart, and you then, instead of having, I think, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 different categories, you end up with 1, 2, 3, 4 voting categories, because you eliminate 2 of the categories depending on how the wording goes. And this also has some examples of what happens on an actual vote. And I used the same examples so you could see how it changes based on the wording. And the blue is what the wording is to get this result. So the other thing that is complicating, even consolidating this down further, if the council would want to consolidate those 4 into, say, 2, majority and 2/3, is, or 3, there's a 10 in there, is the references in the charter to full town council. Because that requires, no matter how many people are present or voting, or either 7 or 9. And so if you remove some of those references to full town council, you simplify this chart even further, but that I did not do that on this chart. So this is why, despite the straw poll, the motion has it going to GOL so they can essentially discuss these options in the chart. Sam.
Thank you, Mandy. It's certainly a complicated process, and it sounds like you're on top of it. But the reason I asked the question is, from my own perspective, I have less concern about simplification and more concern or seeking understanding as to what is actually changing. For example, I see zoning in there in a couple of places where there's a 7 or 9, and I'm not certain what in the new proposed language, I see financial measures and bylaws. So I'm wondering, as an example, what has changed for the zoning category that had 9 previously, since it's not a bylaw, or I assume it's not a bylaw.
Zoning
not
is a bylaw.
financial- It is a bylaw. Okay. So therein lies, there's an example of my lack of understanding about what is actually changing as opposed to how simple it is.
Athena, can you put page 2 up? One down. Page 2 is what, that one right there is what the proposal of the Charter Review Committee changed. So anything in red moved. So stabilization fund moved up from 2/3 of present voting to 9 votes. Financial orders that don't require 2/3 got added because as a special category, because they weren't specifically split out, they were included in measures before. The rightmost column. The middle column shows you what any particular vote, whether it fails or not, because some people wanted examples of specific votes and what that means for a vote, the sort of example. So the middle column says if you pass the language on the left column, a 6-5 vote on a financial order with 2 people abstaining fails because it doesn't receive a majority of the full town council.
Thank you for taking the time to explain. I have another question. You indicated that on the right-hand column, those are in red are indicative of what is changing from item number 6. Is that correct?
Is what is changing from our current rules.
Yeah.
If 6, this particular page is proposed, is what the Charter Review Committee proposed. The other pages are other options.
So if I read this correctly from what I'm seeing on screen, issues related to zoning do not change under item number 6.
Correct.
And most items that require 2/3 majority by state or otherwise, be they financial or bylaws, don't change. The items that are changing with number 6, if I understand what you're indicating correctly, are spending money from the stabilization fund, financial orders that do not require 2/3 vote, whichever they might be, filling a counselor vacancy. Are those the only 3 items that are changing under?
So
number 6 as
financial
proposed?
orders change under the Charter Review Committee's proposal. Financial orders change from a majority present vote or a 2/3 present vote to a flat 2/3 or majority of the full council. So either 7 or 9, no matter how many are present. But right now, they are majority or 2/3 of those present.
Could you repeat that, please? I'm
So
sorry to.
currently, any financial order that's not borrowing or doesn't require 2/3 requires a majority of those present to pass. The Charter Review Committee's proposal would move that to 7.
So it's actually an increase potentially if people are absent.
Yes,
The new measure would be that.
the Charter Review Committee's proposal.
I believe your explanations are helpful to me. I hope that I haven't burdened time that others didn't understand it either. I have a feeling it might have been confusing to others. But in summary, again, since this is significant, we're sending it to one method, perhaps GOL. And the essence of the change are the items, whatever, page number 3 that we're looking at here. The items in red are what is changing, and the vote totals are not being lessened. They're perhaps being increased if there are absences.
So if it goes to GOL, GOL could consider not just the final report's recommendation of the Charter Review Committee, they could consider different options to the rest of that too.
Yeah, but the
Yes.
current recommendation is not reducing the vote totals
That's-
required to pass anything.
No, that's not what the Charter Review Committee's recommendation was. The Charter Review Committee's recommendation was not to reduce any vote totals as currently acted on.
Perhaps I misspoke. The current number 6 that we're proposing to send for consideration by GOL in its current language does not reduce
Correct.
required vote totals for anything to occur.
Correct.
And the items that are 2/3, the most important ones, bylaws, which include zoning and certain financial measures, borrowing, would still require
2/3.
2/3
Yes.
of the total council, regardless of who's present.
No. Under the charter, right now, a borrowing authorization, if we were to vote it, requires 2/3 of those are present. The Charter Review Committee's recommendation was to change that to 9, no matter how many are present. So if only 8 people are present in a meeting, you cannot pass a borrowing authorization if we were to adopt the Charter Review Committee's recommendation.
And under what we're submitting currently for review by GOL, if this passes, do we retain the 9 or are we?
We don't have 9 right now. What the Charter Review Committee recommended was a 9. And that is part of what would be submitted to GOL for consideration.
And then depending on what they recommend, so we don't have an opinion in what we're sending to them. We're saying here are the varying options that people.
We may have an opinion if people want to vote options, but when we had it at the work session, there was very much confusion as to what the language actually resulted in, hence the charts.
Could we display it again? Number 6.
So number 6 is, yeah. We're going to move on to Andy.
I guess I'd like to I'd like to briefly consider number 9, the idea of having all of our committees have resident members, primarily because of our capacity to appoint those members. We're already appointing. I'm on committees that are appointing members of other committees, and now we're going to have 3 additional committees that we're vetting and approving residents to be on those committees. And I'm just wondering if we want to try that in rules rather than in the charter.
So I'm going to explain the difference between the charter versus the rules on that one before we go to a straw poll on that. If it's in the rules, because the charter assigns the appointment of town council standing and ad hoc committees, the appointment of members to those committees to the president. If this language were in the rules, the president would appoint the members of the public. We can do it, but it would be a presidential appointment, not a town council appointment. In order to make it a town council appointment of members of the public, you have to reference it in the charter. So the difference between putting number 9 in the charter and in the rules is not, can you do it? It's who the appointing authority is. It's the second sentence. Yeah, it's the third sentence in green. Council rules shall address the appointment of such members, allows the council to appoint the resident members, not the president. But that has to be in the charter because otherwise the charter's 2.3, 2, whatever, wherever it is that gives the president the authority to appoint the members of council committees would give the authority to appoint members of the public to those council committees too, to the president. So that's a difference between rules and charter there. There is a different application there as to whether it goes. We can take the straw poll as to whether to keep charter change or move to rules, and I'll do that, but I wanted to make sure the council knew the difference on what that change is.
I'm not sure I understand. I'm sorry.
So the language that's proposed here is the same language that allows the council to appoint non-voting finance committee members. It's just in a different section of the charter.
Yeah, but if it's not included in the charter, it means if the council committees have non-voting resident members, the president appoints those members, not the council.
But we In finance, that's not the way it's worked.
because finance is in the charter.
It is the only committee in the charter
So
that
it-
is required, and it is the only committee in the charter that has the potential of other.
I know that, but we decided that the council would appoint those. We decided the president didn't, so we didn't have council shall determine. We just, it was blank.
All right, the
It-
council
it
did
was
not
blank,
decide that.
and
the
we made
charter
that
decided
decision.
that.
The charter decided that.
The charter gives the council the opportunity of appointing non-voting members to the
But-
finance committee, and it says that it can be governed by the rules. The
So-
rules say
yeah.
that the GOL makes a recommendation to the council to appoint a member of the finance committee,
Section
not
5.5B has in it, quote, "The finance committee may include members of the public who shall have a voice but no vote in the finance committee's deliberation. Council rules shall address the appointment of such members."
does have
So
that.
the charter does say that, which is why the council can appoint the finance resident members, not the president. And so without that language in 2.6E, the president would appoint any members of the public to the council committees.
So are you saying that addresses my concern about council capacity?
I'm not saying that. I just wanted to make sure people understood the difference between if it goes in the charter, the rules can say the president can appoint it, or the council can appoint it, or the manager can appoint those members. The rules could assign that appointment to anyone. But if it's not in the charter, the president does the appointing.
Okay.
So if you want more choices, it needs to be in the charter. Does that make sense? So we can straw poll that, and we will straw poll that. Andy's proposal is to move number 9 from a charter change to a GOL.
I'm sorry. I actually think my proposal is to table it. I think that having resident members of other committees other than finance, I think it's confusing, and I think it conflates volunteers with elected officials in a way that is different from the finance committee.
Okay, we have a lot of hands up and I'm getting confused as to who wants to talk about what. And I know we moved off of Sam's, but we were taking a lot of time with that and I thought we needed to move off that unless Sam has a proposal to actually change it on the thing. We can always try and discuss what GOL should discuss later, but it seems like people need more time to think about that one. So we're on number 9.
Wait.
Which is resident members of council committees. Andy is proposing a move from charter change down to table, so no change at all, which does not prohibit the council from allowing resident members on its council committees. The default would be that the president appoints those resident members, but the charter doesn't prohibit them, which means the council could put resident members on its own committees under charge. So no change just means we could choose to do it. Kathy.
Want to say one thing, Andy, if you look at the words, it says may. It doesn't say shall. We actually had a long discussion whether we even wanted them in finance, and we finally decided we did. So it doesn't require it. That's what I'm saying, was people are voting on if it's in the charter, it doesn't force us to have it. Because the word is may, the way it's worded right now. So that's the only thing I wanted to say on 9, the way it's worded right now.
Straw poll on moving number 9 to table. Those, Anna.
Oh,
Sorry.
you don't have to say it like that.
No, I can't keep track of who's got their hand up
it's
for
okay.
what. Sorry.
So no, it's okay. I was going to make the same point Kathy made about May. I do have to agree with Andy broadly, though. I hope that should this go into eventually through whatever course it takes into the charter, I don't think that this is a helpful idea. I think that and I will leave it at that for when it comes back, but I don't think it's a helpful idea and I support tabling it.
Any other comments on this one, Lynn? Is your hand up for this one?
Yeah, I
Okay.
actually, having experienced this on the finance committee, have felt that it was actually a terrific idea and has led to a way of helping people think about being on council, and also gets at the issue that too many people feel excluded, if you will, from their, from being part of government. So, I'd like to continue to have it as a option, and maybe future councils decide not to. So the word may for me takes care of that. Having said that, it's tough to recruit people. It's tough to then interview and recommend them. But it still provides a serious opportunity for citizen engagement at a level that otherwise doesn't happen.
Okay. We're going to straw poll this one. If you want to keep it in the bullet point for a charter change, raise your hand now. I'm just trying to move things along. We have Griesemer, Cano, Martin, Shane, Walker, Rooney, Breivik, Lord, and McLeod. That is 8. If you would like to table it, please raise your hand now. I'm giving some time here. We have Devlin, Gauthier, Churchill, Ryan, and Taub. 4. So for now, it will stay in the charter change section. Okay.
Point of order.
Yes, Pam.
That last discussion on number 9 has nothing to do with reevaluation of the number of counselors involved in a committee should we have residents on the committee. And that's another whole topic. Does that get discussed in equal measure, or how does something like that get discussed? And is that just a rule change rather than a?
If you would like to change a charge of a council committee or a rule of our council rules of procedure, you can propose that at any time and have it referred to GOL. You have to propose it in a form that can be adopted. Athena.
I believe the committees themselves are tasked with reviewing their own charges every year and asking GOL to review them, and then those come back to the council.
Okay. I would like to propose number 19 be tabled. Number 19 is similar to number 9, but this is turning the finance committee from may to shall. So it would require 19. And I agree it's worked well so far, but I would like the charter to still have flexibility. So I'm proposing to table that one. Right now it's proposed for special act adoption. So I would propose to move it to table. Is there discussion on that? Kathy?
I think the word shall's important. I think we'll keep it, hopefully, for a long time. I think pre-council, the old finance committee of town meeting worked very well because we got people who knew something about finance and were willing to volunteer. And since we have 3-year terms with an opportunity to be on for another 3 years, we have people that learn the budget and they have institutional knowledge, which is not necessarily true of counselors. Both, we might change every year which 5 people are on the finance committee, and then there's a learning curve, and if they don't stay, that learning is gone. I think both what Lynn said, it's provided a potential pipeline for future counselors, but it's also provided an entree for people who just want to work on the budget and financial issues. The only barrier that I've found, the old recruitment used to go to the Department of Finance and Management at UMass, and I spoke to one who used to be on finance. He says, I don't want to be on a committee that I don't even have a vote on. But I think that's been dispelled because we do ask a vote. We get a support vote or not. So I think this has been a strengthening feature because it was allowed, and I think it should be a shall. So that's my reason. I think it's an institutional strength to have non-council members. Now, it may be over time, we don't always get a great pool, but we've had some really good people on the finance committee who weren't counselors. bringing strength, knowledge, experience that many of us didn't have before.
Thank you. Lynn?
I believe in creating maximum flexibility in the charter, and therefore I would keep may. I think that that allows down the road the option of saying no. At the same time, but the practice has been very successful. I would therefore vote to take this off.
We're going to move to a straw poll on this one. Please raise your hand in the Zoom window if you would like to keep it as a charter change, the may to change the charter to shall at this point. Raise your hand in Zoom.
This is a vote to change to
To
shall.
keep it in the bullet point of changing to shall, yeah. We have Shane, Brevik, and McLeod. Raise your hand in the Zoom window if you would like to table this change, which would then keep it as may. We have Haneke, Griesemer, Devlin, Gauthier, Churchill, Ryan, Cano, Martin, Taub, Rooney, and Walker. That is 9. So that one's going to move to table. Okay. Are there any other requests? Can we put the motion sort of as it's sort of been changed tonight? Yes. We've got tabling is 19, not 9. So 19 gets deleted in the first one. Okay. Now there was a request to discuss whether we combine essentially bullets 1 and 2 and essentially say to the town attorney, I think Pam, your suggestion was just to request the town attorney prepare language for a charter change at their own discretion on whether it should be 43B or special act, like leave it to the town attorney to make the recommendation
Special act and or 43B.
at their discretion. So leave it to the attorney. Thoughts on that, Counselor Ryan?
Just, why would we leave it to the attorney? Why would we let the attorney decide whether it would be one or the other? We feel that they would have some kind of, I mean, they probably have a lot more, they certainly have a lot more experience than I do. But just somebody help me understand why we want to leave this up to the attorney, as
Pam?
opposed to just asking them to prepare all the language so that it's legally appropriate, and then we will decide what we want to do with it.
Are you meaning prepare, say, I'm just going to take number 1, which was delete the definition of public forum, prepare that both as a special act
Okay.
and a 43B?
So the language would be different in each case.
Yes.
And so that would be obviously a great deal of labor, and people are comfortable with letting the attorney decide because they simply would know what would they know?
Well, this is the discussion. Do we want the attorney to decide or do we want to decide? And if we want to
Right.
decide, which way does the council want to go? That's the
And that's
discussion.
what I earlier started this sort of
Yeah.
mental, or just, thinking, sort of thought experiment. Imagine that we go the route of 43B and it requires 2/3 vote of the council. Then it goes to the Attorney General, and then we go to the voters and we have to explain to them what we have done, and then they will make the final decision. And that will happen, we think, in November of 2027. If we go the route of the special act, requires only a majority vote of the council. We ask Mindy Dom to file a special act that it goes into I won't call it a black hole, but it goes into maybe a brown hole where you're not quite sure what's going to come out. And, maybe it'll come out quickly or maybe it'll never come out, but eventually it comes out. And in the process, they could also require us to also send some of the things to the voters. So as I describe that process, at least in my own mind, I'm thinking this really sounds terrifying. On the other hand, the first process, basically, since we've worked hard on this, the citizen body has worked hard on it, it would require us to go to the voters and district meetings or other forums we create and try to explain to them what they're voting on. Whereas if it goes to the State House, who knows what's going to happen? I mean, maybe some of it will come back and we'll go to the voters. Maybe it'll all be decided by them. As I think this out, just in my own mind, I think the first strategy seems preferable to the second. But
What's your first strategy?
strategy is 43B,
Okay.
the one I did. Yeah, but anyway, right.
Counselor Cano Martin.
Yeah, I concur with Counselor Ryan. I think that either process is difficult, but at least with the voter process that we know we can get it on the ballot next year. Whereas with the special act, it could just go there to die. So I would support what Counselor Ryan said.
Counselor Brevick.
I wonder if it might be helpful to think about if there are specific numbers that we really think or feel should go to the voters. Like just, and I don't know if we have time for a discussion like this or how we're really going about this right now, but to me, it might help to get a sense of what type of thing we're saying, like what, or are we really saying it's all or nothing? It's all going to the voters, or it's all going to a special act. I guess, sorry, it's late and I'm not picking my words great, but I think to me, it actually feels like the special act process would be easier on everybody. It would be smooth and maybe not take that much longer actually in the scheme of things. And so I guess I might just be interested to hear what people think really would be worth packaging up and sending to the voters.
Lynn.
I wonder if there's a step prior to this, and that is to ask KP Law, based on their experience, which of the ones that we are putting there, they think the legislature would then come back to us and say, oh, but you need to have the public vote.
I think they may have done that in their memo. I remember their memo at least identifying at least one of the changes.
Right.
I don't know whether they'd identified more, but they certainly identified at least one, and I don't know whether it's still on this list because I don't remember which one it is that said it will likely
require a local vote.
The legislature would probably say you got to send this to a vote anyway.
Right.
But we could, when we send these to them, I think that was Pam's sort of suggestion. It could be bring back special acts for those that you believe the legislature would pass without requiring a vote of the people. Bring back 43B for those that you believe the people were. I think that's sort of where Pam was going with it. Counselor Brevick, I think, is saying, let's look at the actual proposals. For example, number one's easy to talk about because I just remember what it is, which is delete public forum. Does the people really need to vote on that? Or can we just send that to a special act versus, something else that they might actually more care. It's not that they don't care, but that might be more personal to the voters than the definition of public forum, I think is what Counselor Brevick's suggestion is.
Just to finish, I actually liked Counselor Brevick's point, and that is, are there some things that we feel the voters absolutely would like to have a voice in? And then the other one is, are there areas that KP Law is already giving us the signal, this is probably going to have to go for a vote? And I think that's our assignment for 2 weeks from now, is to use those screens.
So to take these numbers, 1, 2, 3, 7, 9, 10, 12, and figure out which ones you think should be a vote of the people.
Yes.
If that's where people are going. We've got, Sam hasn't talked on this one, so I'm going to go to Sam or Andy, have you talked on this one? Sam and then Andy, and then we'll go back to Pam.
Thank you, Mandy. I see a couple issues in terms of how to determine. One was George's explanation of going to the people who were not, but another one, if I understand correctly, there are two different vote totals required from the council, correct? One is 2/3 and the other one is a simple majority. To me, that's the singular most important determination on whether or not we seek to go forward with some of these changes, because in looking at the recommendations, there's a few of them are like 6-6, 8-3 on the straw polls. So I see a distinction there between a simple majority versus a 2/3, irrespective of whether or not it makes sense to go to special, the public or not. All things being equal, it'd be great for the public to have a say in whatever changes are, but some of these may not. But I see two different aspects of this discussion.
Thanks. Andy?
Yeah, I was trying to address what I think Pam's.
Can you speak closer to the mic?
I was trying to address what I think Pam's original question was, which is, do we need separate bullets for special act amendment to the charter versus, 43B amendment to the charter? Can we ask KP Law to give us the right language to amend the charter? And that's combining 1 and 2. And then subsequent to that, to say which of these should be, do they recommend going via special act versus 43B? Because
So the language to
does it have to
amend
be
by
different?
special act is very different than the language to amend by 43B, because the language to amend by special act, you write the special act for the legislature, which looks very different than the language to amend by 43B, where you write the ballot question, which is prescribed by law.
Okay. I mean, the chain, the first question is
Pam?
That was actually my question. What is so different about writing for the special act? And it sounds like it's a whole lot more.
Athena?
I had my hand up, but Councilor Breivik also did, so you don't have to skip
okay.
anyone to call me.
That's essentially it. I don't want to spend town money on attorney fees to develop this elaborate thing. Why is it so difficult? Can we not in-house create the language for ballot questions, if you
They
will?
can do it quicker than we can because they do it all the time. And it's prescribed by law, so they can actually do it quicker than we overall than we can, and then we would know it's right. Yeah. Councilor Breivik.
Okay, so not to add another layer of complexity, but these other items that are going to GOL could also presumably, we could decide that we want those to go to the voters too. Like that's going to be a decision-making process after they come through GOL where they are going to go from there. So it could make sense to just keep the first bullet as it is. Because also in just looking through what those items are, they are the simpler ones. So they're ones that had more agreement, which I'm guessing is why you put them there. We will still have an opportunity if we have KP Law write these up for a special act. It'll come back to us. We could then say, actually, no, we all want that one to go to the voters, and maybe one from GOL is going to go to the voter. We'll be able to do that kind of maneuvering then, but at least if we can all agree that most of these feel like they're more appropriate for a special act, they're not things that the voters are going to have really strong feelings on. And again, that's not binding because it'll come back to us and we can always shift then. I would personally feel comfortable with that at this point in the game for simplicity's sake.
Councilor Ryan.
I think it was just one of these duh moments for me. the point that I've grasped finally is that it's not either or. We can clearly take multiple paths here. So thank you.
Yeah.
That helps me.
So we're gonna, Athena.
So I just have a suggestion. And I'm glad that I waited till after Councilor Breivik spoke, because all of them will come back from committees for another set of discussions at the council meeting. And it might make more sense for the council to determine which pathway, when it has all the recommendations done and it knows what's going to be a rule change and what's going to be a charter change and is ready to act on them finally, and then asks for language from KP Law via one of the two pathways. So we could change the language in this motion to pursue charter amendments on the following recommendations, simply for that first bullet, and not ask for the KP Law language yet, and just wait until the other ones come back from committee and do it all together. Because I think it makes sense to have all the special act things that you want to do together, any potential ballot things you want to do together, any rule change things you want to do together, and kind of look at it holistically.
I will say, I just worry that that won't be considered an action if it simply is just
to pursue
with no concrete.
But we're saying
place.
that it is an action.
But what I will say is, what I was going to suggest is we leave them all in special act, because it seems like that's, at least from the counselors that are commenting, where counselors are leaning at this point. Everyone look at the numbers that are there and say, look and say, I would really like to see, maybe if there's something they want to see a 43B vote of the people on, be ready for that in 2 weeks to ask for that. But what I was going to say is that town attorney prepare language doesn't have a date attached to it. So it doesn't have to go immediately, in terms of, we can wait until GOL and finance come back and all to send whatever happens there with these at that point, if that makes sense, so that it is as efficient as possible at that time. But we'll have done something with them by the deadline. Does that make sense to people too? Sam, you have your hand up.
If I understand correctly, previously we said, let's put them all together, just change the charter via whatever method for those items in number one. We're going to have to make a determination at the next meeting how to proceed in terms of what we send for the special act. In other words, at what point in time are we going to, we can have items go into both a special act and a 43B, correct? We can have,
Probably not the same item.
correct.
Yeah.
Items can go in one of
Yes,
two
we
baskets.
could choose to send items 1, 2, and 3, for example, to special act, items 7, 9, and 10 to 43B process.
And that would be the same with the items that are being referred to GOL, or is that a completely separate discussion at this point in time?
So GOL will, whatever's going to GOL could come back with, in my mind, potentially, depending on how it's worded, a recommendation on changing the charter, a recommendation with language, a recommendation on changing our rules of procedure with language, and or a recommendation on changing charges themselves with language, or all three for the same thing, depending on what the thing is. So we might see some of these come back from GOL with just a rule change recommendation. Some of them might come back with a charter change recommendation. Some of them might come back with both.
It's
And then we vote.
premature, in other words, for the items that we're sending GOL. Let's wait and see what they say.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Is there any other discussion on this? This is, we'll modify this a little bit for next week in terms of, based on this discussion, maybe we'll see different language on the special act based on the discussion or 43B. But right now, the numbers will be where they are tonight. Next week, if people want, they can propose moving the numbers too, if now that they know what they're talking about. Okay, Sam, your hand is still up.
Yep.
Sam.
And the numbers under the first category of special act are, in our discussion currently, really indicative of change the charter.
Change the charter, yes.
Thank you.
Yeah, okay. Seeing no other hands, thank you for that long discussion and for indulging us. That was that was quite long. But we're gonna move on. We needed that. Hopefully next time this will has served us well so that it's quite quick next week, next council meeting. We're moving on to, committee and liaison reports because appointments were done under consent agenda. It is 10 p.m. I'm not going to go through every committee by itself. Are there any questions for the committees? Instead of having the committees report out individually, do counselors have any questions for committees, or is there something a committee really needs to report on? Anna?
I'm so sorry. Two really quick things. Please read the bylaw review committee charge thoroughly. If you didn't, it was in your packet. We passed it on consent. It's a really exciting and important committee, and GOL worked really hard on that. So thanks for passing it unanimously. Second, GOL is doing interviews for non-voting members of finance tomorrow at 6:30 p.m. should you like to observe from the audience.
Say what time again?
6:30 p.m. on Zoom.
And GOL will be taking up applications for the bylaw review committee now, so those will be active. I'll send the link to the CAF.
And we'll refine the CAF to add that as an option.
And I will be petitioning very hard against adding resident members to all other committees because of all of this. Sorry, unnecessary. But yeah, we will be starting that soon as well. So keep
Okay.
your eyes peeled.
Any other questions for committees or liaisons or reports? Jennifer?
This is an announcement?
Oh,
So-
we'll get to that after town manager report. Does that sound good? Town manager report.
So given the hour, I'm
And
open to
June,
any
yeah.
questions. I know some of you do have questions if you'd like me to address anything.
No, the
No
written reports
report.
next,
No,
next
week,
meeting.
next time.
Counselor Kano Martin.
Hi, Paul, I just wanted to see if you could give us an update on where we're at with having enough people to appoint the members of the reparations committee.
So that is something, I don't think we have many applicants for it, and I think the profile of the candidates who have put their names in aren't really matching up with where the appointing group we're hoping to get. So we're still recruiting. We've asked people to reach out to people. And we asked Michelle Miller, who chaired the AHR, or yes, I think she chaired the AHRA, to give us guidance on when we're ready to move on that. But really, we're looking for candidates.
Thank you.
Okay,
Athena, could you unshare? Sorry, Counselor Kano Martin. Thank you.
Okay, and Paul, I just had one other question. If you could just share with the council the executive order that you put out, and thank you for that.
Oh, sure. So we're going to put out a statement to sort of promote that a little bit more. So it's an executive order that responds to the council's resolution. And it's something we had worked out in advance of that, but it really does sort of try to follow the lead of the governor and some communities in Eastern Massachusetts to establish what the town's process is, what our police department will do. And so I think it really tries to be pretty explicit about reaffirming ourselves as a sanctuary community and living by our mission of being what we are, who we are as a community. That's not very articulate, but I'm sorry. We'll have something out first thing in the morning, actually.
Thank you. Kathy. Oh, Counselor Brevick is on mine. I'm sorry, she was listed first.
Well, I'll reiterate what Amber said too, and thank you for that executive order. I appreciated that. I had a question because I'm sure a lot of us are getting questions about, I know we've talked a lot about the roads, but about the current just situation with potholes. And forgive me if this is some information that's out there easily accessible, but is there a place where we can see what roads are coming up? What are the next roads that will be paved and in what order? And I think that would really help us if, to direct people to just have a sense of what's coming up in the immediate future.
Sure. So we'll be making a presentation to the TSO committee in April. I forget which meeting we've chosen, where that entire plan will be laid out to the council. You're all welcome to to participate in that meeting, obviously. And at that meeting, we talk a little bit about the the condition of roads, the different treatment methods, and then we share the work plan for the coming year. We had to wait till tonight to find out how much money we had, so we'll know how far we can go down the list.
And with actual street names listed out. Okay, great.
Yes.
Kathy.
I sent this question to Paul earlier, and Paul, I didn't actually expect an answer tonight. So seeing your note to us on how many ambulance runs there were because of the weekend, how many police were out, and how many extra time, I wonder, I thought it'd be a good idea for the town to do a reasonable estimate of the cost to us in terms of people, overtime hours that were put into a 24-hour event. And then my understanding is UMass campus people don't help. They were very happy for what we did, but the campus police, I think, don't come off campus for what was in North Amherst. You could still see evidence of what went on. You know, so there's a cleanup part that happens afterwards, and then there's so I quantifying that, and then in the future trying to think of how can we avoid it. You know, this year was less bad than last year because the weather was miserable, but 20 trips in an ambulance is not a small amount from kids drinking too much. Yeah.
So I mean, I think this year it was different, and I think for a lot of good reasons. There was a lot of advanced planning. The university dedicated a lot more resources to the town to be able to have 9 external ambulances on scene, so that it was less of an impact on our staff. All of them were used. There were 20 transports, but that's during the course of the day. You know, the UMass police were out early with interdiction efforts on campus and at bus stops. Anybody who was carrying alcohol, and they seemed to be underage, they were actually interdicting. So we appreciated that work in advance. It didn't materialize like it did last year, and I think that was because of some additional planning by the Amherst Police Department and their community partners to sort of, as they said, titrate the attendance in different ways without being overly confrontational. As what has happened, you know, that event pretty much died out at Townhouse by noon, 1 o'clock. And then we saw lines developing in the afternoon at the bars downtown, at the Spoke, at the Rec Room, at McMurphy's, which had just opened up in Stackers. That's not too unusual at night. It was a little bit surprising, and we have a after action analysis tomorrow with all the town staff who are involved to sort of unpack how everything went, to understand what we could do better. We already know there are some things that we can do better, but I think anything that the town asked for in terms of external support, the university said yes to. So in terms of financial, they covered all of the external expenses. But I think you're asking what did it cost us internally for the town, right?
But I did see you got mutual support too. So we're it's spilling over to all the communities around us.
Well, actually, it does, but it's planned, and that was the concern last year, was that we were calling in ambulances on a moment's notice. This year, everybody who came in was contracted in advance. They knew what to expect. They had people coming in, and we had private ambulance companies as well. Everybody who came in was well prepared. There was no call. I don't think there were any calls for mutual aid at all for ambulance or police support. We released most of our mutual aid partners by 2 o'clock in the afternoon. State police stayed on scene. I'm not sure how late they stayed, but they have a tactical unit that stays in town as well to support Amherst Police Department.
Thank you.
Anna, was your question?
Kathy asked my question.
Okay. Seeing no other hands for the town manager report, we'll move to council comment sections. My report's in the packet. Future agenda items, and then we'll move to you, Jennifer, because I know you have something. So future agenda items right now. Next meeting, March 23rd, we'll have a public forum on the Aaron property purchase if it's out of finance by that point, the financial order we just referred today. We'll have potentially 3 proclamations. They're all in GOL right now. Action item, it's our final deadline. Well, it's our deadline because it's our last meeting before the final action on charter. So what we just spent a lot of time on tonight will hopefully go a lot quicker in 2 weeks because of the time we spent tonight. Purple Heart Town signs to go with the proclamation that is coming. CPA presentation and referral to finance is slated for 2 weeks from now. So the presentation from the CPA committee recommendations, at this point, it's slated for the 23rd. Maybe university, well, and we'll be discussing this tomorrow. So this is just what's, I'm reading from the working list right now. The vote on the Aaron property, Anna, you mentioned a draft letter to MSBA that sounds like you might want to bring that to the council.
It'll probably go to finance first.
Okay.
I'm
so-
bringing it as a member of finance,
Oh.
so I'll bring it there first.
Okay, so we'll pencil it in, but probably not. And we received well, the town manager received a request under the general bylaws from the Human Rights Commission on detainer actions that will be on next meetings under presentations, I guess, with a report from the manager. We'll get that request out to the council. I just got it late today, so I'm still trying to figure out, but it will be under presentations. It's under the sanctuary city bylaw.
Yeah, under the sanctuary community bylaw,
Yeah.
I think we do this every year, so it's
Yeah.
not, it's pretty quick.
But they've made the formal request to get some information, so that'll be on there. Appointments, if they're ready, out of GOL. Right now, that's that. If I think there's enough time, I have still penciled in the beyond the charter stuff, but I don't know whether there will be enough time for that. I'm still trying to figure things out. But I have not forgotten that part of the final report yet. Any other requests for agenda items? I see hands. Are these for agenda items? Counselor Cano Martin is nodding yes. So Counselor Cano Martin.
Yes, I just wanted to propose that we add to the next meeting agenda, if we could discuss some of the ideas that we had to help the DPW that went beyond the contract negotiations. I know there were like a few things that some of us were talking about, including helping out with the building conditions and potentially sewer and wastewater fees. And I think there's other solutions that we could talk about that don't include collective bargaining. So I wanted to see if we could have that on the agenda for the next meeting. And then if not, do we still want to consider doing a special meeting so that we can dedicate more time to look at it comprehensively? So I think I would be open to either.
Okay, we will discuss that in agenda setting with the agenda setting team tomorrow. Jennifer, you, seeing no other hands related to agendas, we'll move to counselors. And Jennifer, you had your hand up first, so I want to go to you before Sam.
No, I just wanted to share that Pam and I are having the District 4 meeting this Sunday afternoon at 3 p.m. In the community room at the Amherst Police Department, and Kathy has very generously agreed to come as the Finance Committee Chair to answer budget questions. But I'm also saying that for the benefit of the at-large counselors, so you know when the meeting is.
Thank you. Sam.
Thank you, Mandy. I'm wondering, you indicated that the CPA is going to schedule for 2 weeks from now. Has there been any indication as to a report that they might provide?
Well, we are waiting on that report, which is why it has not been scheduled yet. But the expectation is that report will be ready for the March 23rd meeting.
Thank you.
Pam.
One additional agenda item for April 27. We hope that there will be a short presentation of clean energy / solar bylaw that comes asking for a referral for public hearings. It won't be really a presentation, but it will be the bylaw coming asking to be referred to CRC and to the planning board for public hearings.
On April 27. It is penciled in already. We're hopeful, but yes.
I wanted to say it publicly.
Yeah. Any other counselor comments? Seeing none, I'll make the motion to adjourn. Is there a second?
Shane seconds.
We will vote. We start with Counselor Lord.
Aye.
Sam McLeod.
Aye.
Pam Rooney,
Yes.
Counselor Ryan,
Aye.
Kathy Shane,
Yes.
Jennifer Taub,
Yes.
Counselor Walker,
Yes.
Counselor Brevick,
Yes.
Counselor Cano Martin,
Yes.
Andy Churchill,
Yes.
Anna Devon Gauthier,
Aye.
Lynn Griesmer,
Aye.
Mandy Jo Haneke is an aye. We are adjourned at 10:15 PM.